Hello, hello, and welcome to our very special stream. Like we announced last week, we are going to be reading for our contest winners. So if you missed out, do not fret. We are going to do this again very soon. So you will have another chance to try and win a reading. But before we get to this very exciting reading portion, we are going to do our usual transit report. So, without a further ado, I'm going to bring up my lovely co host, Danny and Moni, to tag me out.
Bam. Thank you, Moana.
Thank you, Moana. Hello, Danny.
Hello. I find it interesting. Tonight's transits are right ahead of our guest's birthday. So this is
Oh,
the energy leading into the right angle cross before you get to the left angle cross of her birth.
how perfect.
Yep. I feel like it'll
Yeah.
set it all up.
Well, of course it lines up perfectly. It always does.
Of course. Look at that.
Almost
I mean,
like
what
there's like a divine plan behind it all.
me likey.
All right, so this week, September 9th through September 14th, the sun is in gate 47 and the earth in gate 22. We can see this here as we continue our walk around the wheel. We're moving counterclockwise, and we can see that the sun in 47 is this energy of realization. So you can see it down there in the Ajna center. And then the earth in gate 22, it's a solar plexus gate, right? So it's going to link up with some emotionality. And this is about grace. And I love this. This is one of my favorite gates of just like, okay, how do we learn to like move forward with grace and humility?
Yeah, absolutely. The grace is a sensitivity to like listening to the other. And this is part of the cross of rulership. And I've loved, you know, rulership in a nine-centered way on this planet now is supposed to be riddled with both the 47's confusion process trying to get to the bottom of the what needs to be realized and the grace of the emotional center to wait and listen and do what the foundation of grace is. It's called second class ticket. It means it's the grace to sit back and let the other talk first, plenty easily, shall I say, so that the other can do what is most intimate to them. Speak, say their stuff, right? I mean, someone you don't know lets you start talking. That's a big deal.
It's a gift.
Yeah, it's a huge gift. It's one of
Yeah,
our
it's
bigger things.
Yeah, it's fun also because Saturn has been in gate 22 for the past couple months as well. So I've really been enjoying that.
Yeah, it's made me emotional. Navigate 12.
Oh, see, I have 12, but it's my Chiron. So it doesn't actually make me emotional, but I could feel just this sense of like grace, the sense of humility. So I feel like I get the benefit without the extra emotionality.
Chiron is interesting. At some point, we'll talk about that, but I would love to have a panel.
Oh,
Yep, because Ra could never be definitive about a couple of aspects of what Chiron was. It was beyond his ring pass knot, apparently.
we'll have to get into that in a
Yep.
future episode. So stay tuned.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the sun in gate 47, this is this gate of oppression, gate of realization. It's a restrictive and adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength or both. As we said, it's an ajna gate. It's part of the collective circuitry. So collective, think sharing. And it's part of the sensing or the abstract subcircuit. And it links up with gate 64, which is confusion. And then the 6447 is this channel of abstraction. This was really fun. This is fun to learn about. It says the 64 remembers disorganized collection of film clips that pass through its life. And then the 47 is the editor attempting to assemble them into a meaningful slice of human experience. Vacillating perceptions toward different interpretations, eventually experiencing aha moments. The
Yep.
secret is to avoid the pressure to act on every conclusion and then simply to enjoy the possibilities.
That's some really good advice, but
Ooh.
the aha is so true in the moment. Savor it. And if you find yourself where you can't help but to act on it, so be it. Because I mean, aha is a powerful place.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of powerful places, and I'd say that's one of them.
Oh yeah. Well, and especially it's like always go back to strategy and authority, you know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then yeah, like enjoy the possibilities. And then when it's right, then yeah, act on it.
And
And
this
see what
intuit
happens.
this internal weakness. So a restrictive and adverse state. It is restrictive and adverse. It's called they called it oppression. We
Hmm.
read it to realization. Um,
Yeah.
Same process, but this internal, an adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength. And I remember having to read this a bunch of times until I finally got it. It's you may know it's your internal weakness. Aha is not here yet. The external
Okay.
strength of the other to keep oppressing potentially because you still haven't come to aha yet. And so you don't
Um,
have the power because when the abstract process clicks into place, it then suddenly has a power that it didn't have before because aha, you know. Um,
Interesting.
so yeah, it's about the external, or internal weaknesses and strengths that are either of the other or of the circumstance. So it is oppressive, essentially. And it says in rulership, as it relates to the first cross, it says in rulership, you must go through this adverse state. No free rides. No free rides. You're in a nine-centered being now. Going to have to make a lot of aha decisions outside of violence and conquering. You know,
Mm-hmm,
um,
hmm.
y- you need aha to basically translate grace.
Hmm.
Grace is a long process. Aha comes at a moment after grace has given you what you needed to listen to. It is such a symmetry to be inside a rulership because when you get to the other side of rulership, when you get into it, obviously that's the 40, the 45 and the 26. And those are, the boss, the authoritarian, potentially the ego gates, the hot ego gates that control in the past controlled with an iron fist. And that's not rulership these days. But 47 is this process. Um, so oppression is fun. That's I'm a salesman today and I'm selling you that oppression is great. So don't you believe me? You want to buy, right?
Well, I mean, the nature of being human is to have things kind of pushing up against us and then
Absolutely.
making it through. Like when everything's comfortable, like you're bored out of your mind, it's just like, it's like having ice cream for breakfast. It's really fun that first time, but like after that, you get
Right.
really bored. So we need that something pushing on us. And then I love this idea, this like analogy as like the 64 is like these disparate film clips that are passing through of human experience, and 47 being the editor to assemble them and then having that like open mindset, right? It's like how you're going to choose to view these experiences. And the more we can be on this open and grateful kind of mentality, right?
Hmm.
It's like life
Hmm.
happens. That's why we came to earth, is for stuff to kind of knock us around and for us to learn and grow and to be grateful for all those lessons and all the beauty and gifts that we do have. So having
And
that
the
like positive mindset and like how you're going to edit them clips.
And that film clip analogy also is great in another way because if you're an editor and the thing you're being given that you have to put into something is a mishmash of different film clips over all of time, that's the frequency of the mind system over
Mm,
all of time, all of memory. So back to when you were two, there's a clip from there as well. Fit it in, if you remember back then. And so it's oppressive. That's an oppressive job. So this editor in real life, out in the marketplace, quits over and over. If you think about it,
yeah.
it's like I've had enough. So it can feel like I've had enough.
Mm.
So don't quit. This thing is great. It's there to get this job done, and it's so rewarding on the other end.
It's so perfect that it like lines up with grace, which
And it
we'll learn
lines up.
about now.
Yes. Yep.
So the Earth in Gate 22, it's a gate of grace and openness. It's a quality of behavior best suited to handling mundane and trivial situations. It's a solar plexus gate, part of the individual circuitry. So individual, think empowerment. And it's part of the knowing circuit, or sub-circuit, I suppose. And it links up with gate 12, which is standstill or caution. And then the 2212 make up the channel of openness. Gate 22 combines the potential for emotional openness through listening with a social grace and charm that is highly attractive to others when in the right mood. Recognizing and acting on correct timing is dependent on honoring your mood.
And this channel would be the unique creative expression of the knowing individual circuit.
Mm,
Every circuitry uh has its creative channel in it, and that would be the creative channel for this. 22, this handling mundane and trivial situations. It sounds boring, doesn't it? I mean,
It can until you're like mundane and trivial situations are like the mass of what we engage with. It's like
well, that's what I was
95% of
gonna
our day.
say. Please dial up your entire life and recognize almost everything required the grace upon first meeting. This is a design of a social being. Or not, obviously, and it's the design when the whole channel's there, and this openness is openness or not, and it's also a design to basically, as it listens to the other, the very first thing you ever hear is, "Hi, hey, my name's Dan. Hey, what do you do? How are you?" That's all mundane stuff.
Yeah.
That's why this is that. So
That's how
when
you
you
get
can
to the
say
good stuff.
mundane, yeah, or you can say, right, on your way to the good stuff, you can say it's best suited for the foundational amazing stuff. I
That's
mean,
new.
that's what this is. But it all starts with, "Hi, my name's Danny. What's your name?" Right?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah, I mean, those basic and it's so necessary too in how we interact with one another and like connect, especially on an individual, right? It's not tribal. I feel like a tribal thing, it's like an easier way of like, cool, we're gonna connect because we're of a similar nature. But like individual, it's like, hey, I'm a weirdo, you're a weirdo.
"You're a
Can we
weirdo,"
like
right.
can we meld
Yes.
our weirdo-iness?
Yeah, right, and we're talking, and so this is great. See, we're not weird anymore.
Hmm. Like,
Grace,
yeah, a lot of
social
people
openness.
yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of people knock small talk, and I used to be one of these people until like, oh, noticing it, just like, oh yeah, we need that grace and
Everything
openness.
starts there.
It starts there.
Right.
Without it, like you got nothing. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, just go into like quantum physics? Like, good luck.
Well,
I mean, cool if you could
r
find that, but
yeah.
usually it takes a few steps.
And take that concept of, the small talk, you gotta start somewhere. Take that concept over to our mating, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Imagine no small talk there, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
that's
What
really
would we
fun.
be like? Yeah, we'd be like caveman. What was that movie? And the caveman guy would go, "Ah," and then suddenly
Yeah,
they're making babies. Yeah, no, no, thank you. It's not gonna work.
yeah. The
And so
nuance, the grace.
right. So rulership requires the contemplation of the confusion that comes to the realization, tempered by the grace to listen to the other during this process to get the input that's needed. Every time you listen, it becomes a film clip put into the editor's hands, is the thing. And
Mm.
so that's rulership, putting it together that way. And then, of course, the ego, fiery ego, two ego gates are in rulership as a cross. But yep.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now we'll get to those crosses. So people born this week, these the incarnation crosses. First up, as Danny's been referencing, is the right angle cross of rulership. People bringing the past forward with grace who selectively borrow traditions or lessons learned from experience to claim their legitimate right to rule.
Mhm. I like it. People bringing the past forward. Isn't that what this whole realization thing does? That's what it does. It brings the past forward. um, cool.
Fantastic. Yeah. Then we'll move into the juxtaposition cross of oppression. People who use their understanding of the past to articulate or promote a new idea or concept or replace a present understanding.
Oh my God, that word understanding. So that's the circuitry on the other side. And let's face it, the logical circuitry isn't going to replace anything until acted upon by an outside force.
Mm.
These two things are part of the cross of consciousness. I mean, they abut it. They're on the other side of the cross of consciousness. At least the 47 is.
Hmm.
Yep. And to me, it's to promote this new idea. I love that this oppression, juxtaposition of oppression, to try and get past, articulate, and then promote this thing that helps put something new into the understanding world. Because where's it going to come from except from our creative abstract process?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes it'll come from the observation of the logical process, but ultimately,
It's a new
and
experience. That's what the
yeah, and where better to come from in order to, uh, uh, basically replace a present understanding than from rulership. It's a great place to come from
hmm. Hmm.
to do that.
Perfect. So finally, then will be the left angle cross of informing. People with social skills who use the past to inspire, to turn people's attention towards the plight of those who are oppressed. And this is informing as an art form.
Mm. And it is an art form. You
Mm.
gotta love this. Yep, I have a dear friend who is on the cross of informing with this 47 and their son 6'2", and that's what they do.
Mhm.
Yep.
And, like,
So
looking out for the underdog, I noticed too. I have a friend who is like that.
yeah, Yeah, and let's see, so this is moving into gate 6, right? So it moves into from rulership
Yep.
through this informing through the thinking process into the forming and then into gate 6. And gate 6 of conflict is becomes the cross of Eden.
Hmm.
Eden is
Hmm.
about sort of figuring it all out. It's okay, well, we're here now,
Oh
you
yeah, the
know.
Eden types are fantastic.
Yeah, and it's a good thing they were informed beforehand as the wheel moves, you know.
Oh, that's interesting. I love how you
Yeah.
like tie them together as I'm like starting to bridge these new understandings.
Yes, they all go together. It's so good. When you put the whole thing together, it's our genetic code
Hmm. Hmm.
moving and our genetic code in motion. I have a theory that would take a little long to explain here, but it's we've been genetically created essentially over time in the mate in this
In the
basically this
program.
program in the
Oh yeah.
program. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's too perfect, it's too divine, it's too beautiful.
Hmm. Just like our genome.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so final recap September 9th through September 14th, the sun in 47, this gate of realization, and the earth in 22, which is grace. So this is always fun. We'll get into our I Ching hexagrams. So for gate 47, it's lake over water. You ready for the description?
Hmm.
All right, so 47. And so in the I Ching, gate 47 in this book is listed as confined. So it's kind of
Confined.
interesting, like, as a different thing than, like, oppressed, like, that could have, like, a whole different connotation, so I always like to see, like, okay, maybe there's a different angle. So
Hmm.
the image of this one states, "The lake water has all drained away into the stream below, where there might have been a sparkling center of vitality, communication, and exchange, there is no water left, no energy for communication. Even in such straits, a noble one is still active. The lake water drained downward and inward, merging with the stream in a single strong current. In the same way, a noble one lets her mandate, what she is called on to do, flow together with the aspiration of her own heart. The two strengthen one another and create an inner momentum that follows through to fulfillment."
So the noble one perseveres, and what they're persevering through is oppression,
And that confinement.
essentially. The confinement, being confined in this. So, and I just put those two words as synonyms in this case.
Yeah.
So I say that fits.
It's very interesting too. I really love the movie analogy, like the clips that come through, and then the 47 is that editor and that nature of confining. Like you're cutting this clip, you're cutting this, you're understanding it. Okay, if I put it together this way, it has this meaning. But if you edit it a little different, it could have this meaning. So it's kind of interesting that nature of confining these different options, and there's a bit of
Mhm.
agency there too. Like you can like how are you editing these film clips together, right? You can edit it to view yourself as the biggest victim in the world, and like that's going to lead nowhere but a lot of misery and
Right.
bitterness. Or it can be like, cool, we're going to edit that as like hero's journey and triumphant resurrection. So
Absolutely.
I find that
No,
very interesting.
I totally get that. I think that makes sense. Actually, and when you put it into the whole channel, 47, 64, that
Yeah.
channel of abstraction, whereas its sister on one side, the channel of logic, is mental activity mixed with mental ease. That's sort of the frequency of that. This one is mental activity that never ceases,
Because the
which
clips
is
are
what
the
it
clips are
just,
coming through.
yeah, the movie keeps playing unless you're asleep or whatever. Sometimes it doesn't play, but almost always the movie's
Yeah.
playing. I have this channel, it never really shuts off. So these guys are, you think too much people, but they don't think too much. They're thinking just right.
They just always have those clips coming in.
They can't stop coming in. Yeah. So when you have the whole channel, that's the partner that like suddenly is dialing out while you're talking accidentally. The clips, it's a chemistry. It's not their fault.
This is great. I feel like I've had like such a growth in my understanding of this channel because I didn't have like a huge like understanding of it, and I feel a lot better with it. So thanks.
Well, if everything's abstract and it
Yeah.
is our one of our jobs as nine-centered beings ultimately to get to understanding, it doesn't matter if you have channels in that circuitry. We're all moving towards better understanding.
Hmm.
And that job means you have to fish through all this stuff. It never, why would it stop? It's like, dude, I'm so busy. Oh, dude, I'm already behind 20 tons of stuff.
There's
So
always new stuff coming in.
there's always new stuff coming in and or being churned over again. But that's healthy for that being.
Yeah.
For anyone with a channel of abstraction, pick something you want to learn and start learning it. I don't care how abstract it is. When your energy's not there for it, it's not right for you. And when it is, it's right for you. And just learn the crap out of stuff, because this process will keep going on, and it's part of rulership.
Mm,
Ultimately, rulership is supposed to lead towards informing. In the
mhm,
old way, rulership was supposed to lead towards conquering and ownership.
mhm,
Big
mhm.
difference in our
And
two ways.
and also the nature of like a good ruler, right? A good leader, right? Is one that's going to create a story and like edit those images in a positive way that's going to bring people together around that common cause, around the common good, around that absolute truth of goodness, beauty,
Absolutely.
justice. So that's
Hmm.
very interesting too, how the nature of the rulership and creating a story that like unifies us.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. And they would need to be tempered by these things. And these things would need the fire of the manipulation of memory in Gate 26 and the absolute authority of 45 to basically teach and give
Mhm,
and educate in a way and sort of homogenize a little bit. A little bit
mhm.
of homogenization is not a bad thing.
It's part of being human.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So,
All right, ready for gate 22?
ma'am, yes, ma'am.
All right. So for gate 22, which is grace, and then in our I Ching book, it reads as beauty, which I think is lovely. It reads, perhaps the firelight is flickering over the rock face, creating shifting patterns of light and dark. Or perhaps this is the volcanic fire inside a mountain, still dynamically shaping what appears so solid and established from the outside. The inner light of awareness shines through the outer form. So a noble one sees all the standards, all the way the world is governed and ordered from the inside. He understands how things are defined and how standards arise, and how many forms of the inner essence can take. So where could he possibly stand to pass judgment?
Not only nowhere, but it sounds like the nobleman had a foundation of dealing with lots of mundane, what appear to be trivialities on his way to that description you just mentioned, read off.
Mhm. That's the
Yep.
nature of grace. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and I'm looking at these things, mountain and fire. So I can't wait to how do these things go together?
Yeah, it's
Because
interesting.
this the mountain and the fire part is part of the old Chinese wisdom about the hexagram, right?
Yeah,
Sense.
that's the Chinese stuff. Well, on this one, it's saying the firelight that's flickering over the rock face, creating shifting patterns of light and dark. Or perhaps the volcanic fire inside a mountain that's still dynamically shaping what appears so solid and established from the outside. So I think it's talking about that fire, that movability, right? Whether it's images of light on the rock face, or the volcanic that like seems solid, but it's still all molten and ooey gooey, and that inner
Yeah.
light of awareness shining through from the outer form.
I'm gonna have to contemplate that. I can think of that a bunch of different ways as it relates to the grace inside of this cross on its way to Eden, going through and forming part of a nine-centered experience. I'm gonna ponder that
Mhm,
because that's not as easy to what you just read. It was not as easy for me to just translate for
mhm.
some reason.
Yeah,
I
I
must
feel like,
I must be confused and oppressed for a moment.
oh my goodness, perhaps. Well, I like how it says the inner light of awareness shines through the outer form. And then the noble one sees all the standards, that's going to see all the ways that this fire is going to be shaping from within the mountain, or the lights that are moving all around, and having that broad perspective, right?
Mm,
All the ways the world is governed and ordered from the inside. He understands how things are defined, how standards arise, and how many forms the inner essence can take. So where can he stand? So he can see such a variety. So who is he to judge? And having that grace of the varieties of
right.
expressions of the, especially the shape that's still forming, right? The fire, it's that volcanic, it's not hard yet. It's still in that shape of forming, and allowing that grace of like, okay, what are you going to become?
So the grace is malleable, which of course it is, adaptable. And also it says that part of rulership and part of this grace then is like a furnace waiting to have an emotional awareness about something that is much deeper than where it started. It says the second class ticket of the foundational line, willing to just sit and listen, is really just a temporary state, on its way to something very manifestory, because this is part of one of three
Yeah,
manifesting channels. So coolio.
I
I
love
feel
it.
pretty good. So what do we do? Let's put into some words what this means for the next few days while this energy is in the sky. So this energy is transiting through the sun and our earth. So this is powerful stuff. Every child born during this time is one of these three crosses that we just read off a couple slides ago. And so this will be programming and conditioning the planet and the people in it to what?
Yeah, I would say I start on the earth side because I find it's like the earth is what's receiving the sun. So like how
Mhm.
we can ground ourselves. And so grounding ourselves in that grace, in that humility and understanding, right? Of like that light is going to show all sorts of different pictures of that volcanic fire inside the mountain, right? It's still the lava is still moving around. It's still being shaped and formed and allowing ourselves and others, especially that grace of becoming, right? They're still in that process of becoming and allowing that through that, then you can bring in the sun with that confinement or the oppression, or, okay, trying to make sense of, okay, these different memories or images that are coming through in our lives and having that grace as that editor of how we're going to edit them. What mindset are we going to choose to place upon these experiences and these images, right? We can move forward with grace, with humility, with courage and bravery. Mm.
Yeah, and what you said, amongst the first couple of things you just said, and all of that was the listening part, and it just seems to say to me that this week, notice that you've already been listening to stuff. So if you find yourself getting annoyed, why don't you lean in? Why don't you do a whole ton of listening this week, even if you also have a hard time with something?
Well,
Go do
especially if you
that.
have a hard time with
Yeah,
it.
especially if you have a hard time with something. Right, right, right. Thank you, Mona. Yeah, and it just says that this is a week that, with all kinds of listening, there'll be all kinds of abstract stuff to give us all kinds of aha.
Mhm.
And the more we embrace that process, the more ultimate clarity we'll have, because ultimately the 6447 channel, when that's there, that's a design of mental activity mixed with clarity, just like the
Mm.
emotional process. Because the aha becomes clear. It doesn't stay there because the new aha is on its way, but that's what it's saying. It's saying this is a week and this is a time, the next few days, 4 or 5 days, however long, to literally do plenty of listening such that you can then talk and find out what stuff you abstractly are dealing with. This is going to be important to you and to us and to everyone else. So, with grace in the sky and listening in this mental process, two awareness centers lit up by this process, um, don't shy away from hard subjects. Start listening.
Mm.
Everything where there's a conflict in your family, some kind of a division, anything like this that might have been difficult, um, listen and find out what does come across, but not right now because it's part of an emotional process essentially.
Give it time.
So wait till it's over, and then next week, see what came of all of this. So
Mhm.
do some listening.
Mhm. And how
Yep.
important it is to listen, right? Like, it's so easy to be, like, waiting for your turn to speak, or you're gonna, like, have the
Right,
argument, and the person's gonna agree with you, and you're gonna win, right? Like, that's how so
right,
often we move through it. So but so
right,
often
right.
if we allow that other to speak, like, what are they trying to really tell us? Like,
Mhm.
sometimes there's something really important there for them to express or for us to learn, and maybe even if, like, 90% of it is, like, whatever, it doesn't matter, maybe there's, like, 10% or, like, one really good nugget that
Right.
if we can be in grace, if we can ground ourselves in that, like, humility and grace to just listen and receive, and an open mindset of how we're going to perceive these experiences, then that clarity and that aha will eventually come and we'll be in a better place for it.
Yep, yep, I'm down with all of that. This is pretty good. Pay attention to all of what we were just saying about these next few days, and I certainly hope. I just want it all to wash across the world and everyone to wake up and be good again.
We're getting there, baby steps with grace
Yeah.
and humility and an open mindset.
Yep, yep. Yes,
Thank you,
Moni.
Danny.
Yep, thank you, Moni. I think this was good.
It feels really good. Thank you.
So what happens next? Oh, I'm going on to read. Is
Well, I
Moana
think Moana's popping up next.
is hopefully she gives me
Am I just
little.
popping myself on? I didn't know what was happening.
I don't
Okay.
know. You're the
You
puppet
guys mind
master.
talking for a second? I have to go open the door.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're supposed to be popped off anyway. Okay. I guess he didn't get the memo. Anyways, tag team out, friend. Thank you.
Love you, baby.
Okay. So now we are going to introduce our lovely contest winner, Paula.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
We are absolutely delighted to have you on. So I was talking about this backstage. You already know this, but the whole purpose of us doing this stream is we want everyone to be able to read their own charts, their friends' charts, all the things, right? And it starts with like little baby steps and like knowing what to look for. And, you know, when you first look at the thing, it's like very overwhelming, right? Like, how did you feel when I first showed it to you?
I was absolutely overwhelmed. I'm like, what does this mean?
Right? I was the same. I saw that. I'm like, I don't know what this is. And I just stayed away from it forever. I just, not forever, like for months. I'm like, I don't need another thing to like wrap my head around. And I actually was like, I'm good. It was a friend's insistence. But what we're going to do is at least for the first little bit, I am going to walk the audience through a human design chart and using you as an example. So it's like a little mini lesson on how to read a chart. So this is the lovely Paula. So the first thing we like to look at is to determine the energy type, right? So a easy giveaway, right, is if they are a sacral or non-sacral. So if you don't recall, this center here is a sacral or sacral, depending on who you talk to. If that is colored in, it means it's defined. And you can only be either a generator or a manifesting generator if that square is colored in. So second from the bottom. Now, how would you distinguish an MG from a generator? So the next thing we would look for is, so this is our throat. So we would look for a connection to the throat. There's no connection. Therefore, automatically generator. Manifesting generators, they have a motor center. So it could be the sacral, it could be the ego, it could be their ESP connecting to their throat, which makes them into a manifesting generator. But there's none of that. So generator. So we got that step figured out. Yay. Everyone with me? Type it in the chat. Okay. So we got the type figured out. Nice and easy. Now the next thing to look at is what's your authority? Okay. So your authority is figured out by remember the hierarchy. So if you didn't watch our authority series, go back and watch it. So the number one authority in terms of hierarchy is going to be your emotional solar plexus. So if you have this colored in, automatically this becomes your authority. And because she does have this colored in, ta-da, we know she is an emotional generator. Now, let's pretend Paula did not have this colored in. And instead, she had just her sacral. That means she automatically becomes a sacral generator. So both MGs and generators only come in two flavors. Only two flavors. They're either emotional or they're sacral. That's it. So it keeps it nice and simple. When you get into like projectors, you get all these different flavors. So we have a nice and good beginner chart to look at. Not beginner, you know what I mean. Like when you look at like other projector types, it gets like, is this self-projected? Is it mental? Like, again, you can go back and watch our episodes. I didn't really walk you through, but here, all intents and purposes, you know she's emotional. So we got her type, we got her authority. Now, next easy thing to look for. So what I'm trying to do is trying to train you to just look at a chart and know the things instead of like reading the writing. Because for the very longest time, I was reading the writing. I'm like, I need to look at the writing to see like what the things are. But Danny's like, what are you doing? No, like you need to be able to look at a chart and know this stuff. And I'm like, okay. next level to unlocking chart reader skills is to be able to just look and not like read for the descriptions. So I'm imparting that knowledge onto you. So the next thing is profile. Okay. So profile is, see, this is really hard to see here, but there's a decimal point. Okay. So it's 6.6. Okay. So the 6 is the gate. Okay. So see all these like numbers happening inside the centers? That's a gate. Okay. So future episodes are going to be going into gates, but for now, you don't have to worry about that. All you have to worry about is the decimal point here. The decimal point here tells us she is a line 6. Okay. Line 6. And then we go to this side. It's 0.2. So that makes her a
6'2".
ta-da! Right? That's all you need to do to figure out the profile, right? Fun. Now, the other thing to know, and this is just me getting all excited about human design, is what makes human design different from astrology is this division right here. See how you have the black and you have the red? What that is your conscious side and your unconscious side. Okay. So your unconscious side is a calculation based off of the time you were born. I'm like reversing back. I can't remember exactly how many days. Danny can tell you that, but I believe it's like 4 months in utero that this part's figured out. Yeah. Okay. Again, don't quote me on the exact number, but that's what makes it interesting, because now you can tell what part of Paula's design is unconscious, meaning she is not aware of the thing, versus conscious, meaning she has an idea that she's doing the thing. Cool. So how this translates into the chart, see how these numbers are like black. Actually, no, don't look at the numbers. Look at the channel here. So this is this is called a hanging gate because it doesn't connect. See, this is black, which means gate 22 for Paula is conscious. So she is like aware that she does this. But let's look for a red one. Over here, it's red, meaning she's not fully aware of when she does this. But when it's 2 colors, that means it depends. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's unconscious. So that is what those colors are. And one more fun thing to note in Paula's chart is I look for the centers. Okay, so what is colored in and what's not colored in? So when you have something colored in, let's look at her ajna. She has 2 gates here, 47 and 4. It's undefined because there's something there. But when you have nothing, completely white, like her head and her ego, that is called an open center. Completely open, meaning no filters. So when it's undefined, that means these are her lenses. These are her glasses that she experiences that center through. But here, there's a nothing. So the other thing to note is, again, which centers are defined. So she has her G, her sacral, her root, and her emotional solar plexus defined. Now, that is, again, the centers. Danny's going to get into it. And again, go back and watch our centers episode if you're like trying to figure out your own centers, where we explain what it means to have that center undefined or defined. So I'm not sure where Danny went. Maybe he's still away. But let me see how I can teach you some more things. Paula, do you have any questions so far? Because again,
No.
I'm trying to impart this to you too.
Honestly, the way that you explained it was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense as to like how you read the chart. And honestly, the whole like defined and undefined, like knowing and not knowing the traits and stuff, I'm kind of interested in knowing a little bit more about that.
Yeah,
You know,
so that's what Danny's gonna do. So now you're like, well, this thing, see, now you have like some sort of reference point. It's like, okay, well, this part's unconscious. Like, so what does that mean for me? This part's unconscious. What does that mean for me? And Danny is like the master of like the nitty gritty things, which I'm like, sorry, I haven't reached his level of expertise. So without further ado, I'm going to swap Danny out to talk about the more complex parts of your chart. But I hope that little beginner mini lesson helped people out to kind of have a context of what are some of the things Danny's going to look into. One last thing I forgot to mention. So these arrows over here, these are called variables, okay? That is the substructure of your design. And the numbers are color, tone, and all the other things, can't remember. But the interesting thing is all 4 of her arrows are facing right. Am I doing that right? Doesn't matter. Anyways, they're all facing right, which makes her a quad right. Quad rights are like really special. And again, Danny will explain why quad rights are special. I like to think we're living in a quad left world. So it's kind of tough for quad rights to like function in a world that is very quad left. And again, Danny will talk about all of that. Without further ado, Danny, enlighten us. We're so excited. Paula is like grinning, and it's going to be a good time. All right, here we go.
It's so exciting. Thank you, Moana. Moana just set the itinerary for the whole thing. It's kind of cool. I'm going to start with these arrows. Paula, first of all, Paula, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Good to see you too.
20 minutes later. Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to dig in deeply to get you into this experiment. The whole goal, there's not even no sense really reading anything until we know the person wants to sort of get into this experiment so they can see what is going on with themselves. So the experiment is to watch. It's you just willingly watch as these things, and you'll go back and listen to this recording over and over again, or watch it and stuff. And is there a significant other in your life currently?
Yes.
Well, we should get his or her design too. That would be.
He is a 2/4 generator sacral authority. That's all I know.
I'm a 2/4. So, and does he drive you crazy? Are you okay?
Sometimes.
Yeah, his propensity to check out is stunning. So I'm gonna start with these arrows just because she mentioned them as the last thing that she mentioned. And people look at this. This stuff is independent from the things I'll be reading about the aspects of your design, but they're just really important because they give us our way and much to do with our cognition and just sort of how we're taking in what's going on. Rightness is open and receptive. Leftness is strategic and active. It's the strategic, active yang principle. Rightness is far more the open, receptive, peripheral yin version of things. And it's constantly taking in. And the last thing Moana had said was that, we're in an all left world. That's true. So in 1781, this change took place. We were finally ready to mutate, essentially, to evolve. And we turned into 9-centered beings. The chart has 9 centers. It's not a 7 chakra center form anymore. It's 9. That's a pretty big deal. I mean, we've been seeing the lotus position person with 7 chakras our whole life, but now it's we didn't know, but it's always been 9 in our lifetime, and 3 or 4 lifetimes before us, back to 1781, probably more like 5 or 6. And it was just strategic. It was strictly strategic. All it wanted to do was find its strategic advantage. What can it have? How can it gain? And that didn't matter if it was at the expense of the other. You know what I mean? And what the old way is like. It's murderous, right? Conquering. And they had cooperation going for them. But that cooperation ended once one power was strong enough or stronger than the other. They always would pillage and take over the other. And, our history is littered with, murdering the men and making new children and replacing the religion and all this nasty stuff. That's what all leftness is. We're now a mixture, and so we're some left, some right, and in your case it's all right. And it means that trying to be strategic is not your thing. It's just not. Hey, Paula, let me give you some details. Figure out how creatively to make this work best for me, and have it here by 3. That's not, unless you're totally into it, which is a rare instance. You have no way of doing that. You have this beautiful mind. It's coming through with these little formulas, and it goes through this oppressive process sometimes that we talked about. You have that gate 47. And so it's busy. It's busy. You're thinking about things, thoughts are pouring through. And the second you strategically try to latch onto one of those thoughts and say, I'm going to make a new business plan out of this, no can do. It's so hard. If it worked 1 out of 18 times, that's a lot. Is that true?
Yeah.
Have you beat yourself up over that?
Sometimes I feel like there's like a lot of like little mini projects. I'm like, oh, this is a good idea. Oh, this is a good idea. But it's just like not a lot of follow through. And I'm like, dang, I can do better. But
Right. Well, it's in that I can do better that the conditioning of our parents and our society and the cop on the corner and school, God, and our friends, and our partners, all that conditioning accidentally came in. Our parents didn't know. They're the prime source of it. And they taught you can do better. That was their teaching to us. My parents did some of that too. Oh, honey, no, of course you can do better. You know what? No, I can't because I don't want to. You didn't want to. If you did, you would have. So, and what does that sound like? Oh, you're a quitter. Have you had that voodoo placed upon you at times, or you put it on yourself? Oh my God, I had these great ideas and I'm just a quitter, or I can't do the thing. And these failure concepts that we have conditioned ourselves that exist and they don't. Have you put some of that, darkness on yourself at times?
yeah, I would say I've put it on myself. Just because I feel like for the longest time, I grew up trying to be a huge people pleaser to try to like prove that I was worthy to my fatherly
Yeah,
figures in my life. And
yeah.
it was just never enough, and it got exhausting. And I think that's something that I've been like learning to navigate through, but I still have those like beliefs of like, dang, like in the back of my mind that.
Right. They're going to plague you until you're in this experiment. And the experiment is to witness that's who you're not. Every single time the beautiful thing comes flying through and you have a kernel of an aha moment and your form gets lit up a little bit, but you find you're not actually in motion on your way to doing the thing that you had the aha about, that's how you can know you're not going to do the thing.
Mhm.
And it's always in response, you'll find this out. I'm right arrows as well on the right side of my body graph. So my 2 conscious arrows are pointing to the right. I don't know. I'm open and receptive too. So the gift of this open receptivity, and you'll have recognized this, we take in everything. It all keeps plowing itself in, everything. And suddenly people come up to us or situations take place that pull from that the pool of everything. The strategic people, don't have the pool of everything. They're constantly saying something, and then out of us is drawn the magic of the all. We are the allspice. We have it all. And as soon as it's drawn from us, we're the ones that keep continually saying, I didn't know I knew that much. I didn't know I knew that. Oh my God, where did that come from? And you recognize this over and over again, or something will happen. You'll be like, oh my God, I knew that would go that way. Because deep from your rightness, where everything went in, I mean, all of life, it goes in, your travels, you're gazing out the window when your mom would take you someplace, all that stuff is in you. And the right stores it. It's a giant storage house. And the left comes and says, I got something strategic to do with that storage house. And you have no strategic arrows. So the torturing effect in the experiment for you is to start to witness, I torture myself like somewhat regularly, and maybe less now, because the older you get, the better we get at this. But why the hell wait? You know what I mean? Give this to me when I'm 2 and 5, so I don't have to go through this now.
Yeah.
So we don't have to wait as you start to experiment with recognizing, if I don't try, all the things that I need to know about whatever it was I was excited about, they just keep pouring out. I just suddenly know them. I know the next new thing. My mind's on fire. I'm daydreaming, knowing the next new thing. I'm not writing it down. Oh, well, it's going to be lost in 2 seconds. Oh, well.
It's funny you say that, because I have Otter on my phone as like one of the apps. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but essentially you can it's kind of like voice recordings. You can create like your own little mini voice recordings.
Love
and
it.
I have the worst time when it comes to like having a business and like trying to advertise or make posts, stay consistent with that. Like I have so many ideas, but I never follow through. And sometimes I'm like, I'm driving in the car. I'm like, oh, this is a great idea. And I just like record and I have all these ideas in my phone, but I just don't go
Let's get back
forward.
to the genetic mechanics. You're driving down the road and suddenly this great idea comes through.
Uh-huh.
That's a process. Is right. That's a process of the little daydreaming moment you allowed when that moment of driving, a little bit of autopilot when you're driving. It's a combination of that and a certain aspect of scenery, a certain piece of road, a certain feeling of the tread of your tire on the road. It's so sensitive to every last vibration. You know,
Mhm.
the color of the leaves changing, whatever it was, a car you went by, the sound of a motorcycle that was too loud, was something in combination with the daydreaming, and the rightness is daydreaming can be so deep we're gone, or it can be just shallow on the surface, in and out, in and out, and then the aha moment comes. So driving down the road and this amazing thing comes and you go to put it on your voice recorder, right? To
Mhm.
save it. That's a beautiful thing. Um, just don't let yourself feel bad when you only get back to one of those voice recording things. You can't. You have to stop. When I say stop, start witnessing every time this sudden negative self-thought comes through. That's who you're not. Your chemistry didn't give that to you. The conditioning did. Because the conditioning is you're supposed to be like a manifester. You're supposed to be able to go out and just do and do consistently. What do you mean you're not consistently posting? What do you mean you're not consistently going through the ideas you put on the recording and making something out of it? That's manifester talk. That's not generator stuff. So you have to be just exist in the glory of the recognition of that rightness is loaded down with so many things. It's just and they keep popping out. And so each year, just recognize anywhere from 4 to 40 of those things started to come to fruition. And start to be grateful for that. Hey, I got 40 things each year, man. This is great. How many you got? You start to realize you're abundant. You're abundant with things when as soon as you be a good generator and wait and recognize that that's what keeps happening. Same thing with memorizing stuff. Same thing with all of this stuff. As soon as you're into it or it's something that you sort of have to do, you can look at a series of figures or symbols or facts or things, and suddenly they're implicitly in your short-term memory, like to
Hmm.
the point of total recall. Every once in a while, you read something and you have dazzling recall. And it's like, whoa. And it might even be surprising to you at times. Is it?
Yeah, it's funny because there's sometimes where it's like, oh no, I remember this very specific detail of this thing in time.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. But the recall is actually an amazing moment. Just allow it when it happens. We're
mhm,
here, rightness is here to simply exist like the lily in the field. She does
mhm,
not toil. I forget if
mhm,
that's a Bible verse or something from something, but it's part of a wise old statement, maybe a fortune cookie thing from those I Ching guys, noticing how the lilies in the field, they do not toil. They just are lilies. And that's what the right is. It does not toil. It just waits for its vastness, that you don't have to do anything to make it vast, but its vastness to keep pouring back out. So as soon as you're wondering, oh, am I going to recall that? Stop thinking about it and recognize 2 hours later when you needed to recall it, it came out. And when you think about it and say, oh, well, I'm going to say it 3 times to myself and put it into my memory, or 5 times, and you can't remember it. That's strategic work. Um, Even if you
that's
said it 5 times.
that's interesting you say that. Yeah.
Why, you experience that, don't you? You
Yeah,
must.
I do. Sometimes I'm like, "Ah, I gotta remember, but when I don't worry about it, I'm like, oh yeah, cool.
2 seconds, an hour later, the next day, whatever, the parent-teacher conference, someone says something, and out it comes. Oh, yeah, my kid needs to this, that, and the other thing. And had you tried to remember it, you would have messed that up, or more likely than not.
Yeah.
So that's what rightness is. It's a giant gift. And as it relates to your experiment, it's witnessing and going back and listening to sort of how that was described. And this is an overall description. I'm not going to go into each arrow because they're all doing something, but just it's about this overall collection of stuff rather than the strategic doing of what was collected, doing of something, with it that was collected. So next thing is just getting into what is this generator. Before we get into this emotionalness, I want to know if as far as the experiment goes, let's entrench what this generator form is. Let's do that. So the very first thing about a generator is they're always looking inward. There's a looking inward process, and you have this channel of centering. I see it from gate 34 up to 10, and this channel of mutation too. So these things are incredibly individual, and so they're always self-exploring. You're the 34 is off of the red sacral center, and the 10 is Oh wow, Moana, you are watching. I thought that was creepy. I was like, am I doing that? I'm telekinetic now. So it's designed to self-explore. It's called the channel of exploration, and it's about looking inward at your own behavior. And half the time, this thing tortures us with my behavior sucked, and the other half the time, it's so perfect inside of us. It's just looking inward. I was this. I do that. I am this to me. I love me this way. I this, that, the other thing. It's constantly looking inward. It's self-exploring. In doing so, it very often doesn't notice the other looking in on you. So it's easy to get caught off guard with this channel and with the two channels I mentioned, because it can be totally obtuse, even deaf to the other. Just like, so sometimes your sweetie says things and you're not really listening, but that's okay, because he's a 2-4, and I promise you, you're saying things to him and he's not listening sometimes. Yeah, you've seen that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he can't help it. And you watch his helplessness, right? And being the role model that you are with this beautiful cross, I love this cross that you have. Being this role model ultimately makes the person be able to see that and account for it, and only get pissed like 1 out of 3 times, where other people might get pissed all 3 out of 3 times. You know, and have it become more practical, have it become less personal. You know, it's not all that personal. He doesn't hate me. He's just, you know, he's just being that way right now. And maybe you want to, whatever, clobber him a little bit, but it's not that bad, is what I'm getting at. Because he can't help it. And you've witnessed him. He can't help it. And that's the helplessness of our designs that is just so important to really come to recognize. So back to this generator form. So the generator is designed to respond. If you've got this sacral box in your body graph, you're a generator, and that's 70% of us. And that means this box, this red sacral, second from the bottom, with 3 channels coming off of it. That's a ton of life force coming off of this center. It's the most prominent center in your body graph, even though you have a defined solar plex. And it is telling us that it doesn't know what's true until it's a response. It doesn't actually know the essence of the truth right now until it's a response. And the conditioning is to tamp out that response and cover over it with the noise of the mind that thinks. That's really what's happening with this. And Moana, is it possible to put us both on the right side of the screen? As that happens, I don't know if that's a big deal or not, but so as this sacral is waiting to respond, what's happening with it, it's acting like a diaphragm. So all generators know this experience. The whole world is literally coming in on us at all times. And this is a diaphragm. It's waiting to just bounce back whatever came at it. It's like a dog. When the dog's sitting in the window, when does it bark? When another dog walks by, right? And it's not barking the rest of the time. So what's that dog doing? It is responding. It's just a sheer responsibility, right? And the rest of the time, it's just sitting there, and dumb dog doesn't care. Nothing's happening for it until that other dog walks by. We are like that. Part of our awareness is brought into form by recognizing that instead of going out and doing as a generator, we have to sit back and get used to waiting to respond. And as soon as we start to get used to seeing how, oh my God, my truth comes out there, it really comes out in spades when I do that. And what's true for me comes out when I do that. You'll start to realize you don't have to wait long to respond. And once you start living your life this way, suddenly you start realizing, not only do I not have to wait long to respond to anything, there's no shortage of stuff to do. I don't end up waiting very long or at all, is what you find out. And to put a fine point on it, the experiment we want to get you into as a generator that says my strategy is to respond is to get you to understand a couple of binaries that are taking place. One is frustration and satisfaction. So you're a generator. You know what frustration is. You got half energy. You don't feel like doing it, but you have to do it. And you're working through it. And you just wish you were someplace else. And you just, whatever, it's frustrating. The other person isn't cooperating with you. The thing isn't working. And bam, you just don't have energy for it. Yeah. And there's 100 things in life that meet that description. I don't have energy for paying bills. I don't want to look at a single one. You know what I mean? And as soon as I get to it, my energy goes down almost to like 5 and 10%, sometimes to 0. That's the generative box speaking the truth, trying to be heard as truth over the noise and the racket of the not self mind. So we're trying to get these juxtapositions. So as soon as you're frustrated, recognize that that frustration in any form comes with its commensurate and proportional lack of energy for the thing. These two things travel together. So that's something that from an understanding point of view, you can just look inward and start to see. It was like, yeah, I am low energy, but I have to do this thing. And now you're in an experiment, forcing yourself to do the dang thing because you're in the middle of a life. It's not like you can just bail on everything, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to do the thing, but now it's an experiment because you're realizing I do have crappy energy for this. Suddenly you'll start rating things. You're like, you know what? I have this thing that I always keep getting myself stuck in things where I'm at 50% power or less to actually do the thing. And you're going to start to measure how much is that? And what ends up happening to all generators when they start to see how much of their life is being wasted by the stuff they don't actually want, they stop trying to make a plan to get to the things they want because they're designed to live existentially in the now, like the dog waiting to respond. We're squirrels. I affectionately call all generators, especially myself, dumb generators. It's not very finessed. We're just waiting to respond, but it is finessed. It is incredibly rich. It's hugely deep because we've got a whole mental system recognizing, becoming aware of it, and measuring what that's all about. So in your daily life, things will go on, people will say things, and you will find yourself speaking with your throat. Yeah, I'll do that. Oh, okay, well, no, I can't tell, maybe. You'll hear yourself saying these things over and over again. I'll try to get to that. None of these are true. Almost none of them are true. They're not true. So now you're going to force yourself to get to that. You're going to force yourself to contemplate the maybe. You're going to force yourself to now agree with, yeah, okay, when the answer was hell no.
Yeah.
And you're a generator. You can do just fine with that. Half the time, most of the time, you'll get by. But you'll get by as you're making yourself sick over time. So to flesh out how to really recognize that is a couple of things. Recognize the difference between the satisfaction of having full energy for something and the dissatisfaction called frustration. And frustration quickly ramps itself through agitation into anger, into just don't know what to do.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's just blindingly confused and upset and emotional. In your case, at times, feeling empty. We don't want that. So
it's funny you say that. Just because right now I'm at a phase where I picked up a job to work at a cafe. It's not like my life passion, but it was nice because that was when my boyfriend was deployed. And so I didn't want to be alone. We just moved to a new town in April and he deployed like first week in May. So I just wanted to get out there, meet new people, and started working there. And it's just so opposite, like my boss is very like, do this, that. And I'm like, okay. And now I'm in a phase where it's just like, this is so irritating. There's like no structure, but she wants this structure. And it's just like a whole like battle. And so right now I'm in a phase where I started working at a nonprofit after school music organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited about it. I'm really passionate about helping these kinds of students because I was one of those kinds of students, right? I was given opportunities as a kid and I got to travel because of music. And so I'm excited for it. And I think there's like a job opening for a grant writer. and the person who's in charge of figuring that out is out of town. So right now I'm just waiting.
Do you know how
And
to write grants?
I do. I do.
Oh.
I got to write some grants at the elementary school I used to work for when I was advocating for modern band music in the classroom. So I'm excited for it. I hope I get it, but right now I'm just kind of in that waiting phase. And as soon as I know, I'm like, okay, quit. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to, right now I'm just like in this frustration where it's just like, I don't want to.
Are you still working at the cafe?
Yeah.
So let's ask some questions.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is I need to get you to see, and it's a subtle thing. So our not self mind, this thing that treats us like a slave, the whole body is treated like a slave by the conditioning that's gone into the mind, this thing that we think we are. I better do this. It's that thing that's measured all the things. I better do this or this bad thing will happen. Mind. Mind has no business telling us what's true. It used to, and it doesn't anymore. But it's still there, like existing within an old seven-centered hangover from just 240 years ago. That's not long, evolutionarily speaking. So it's in our cells. Our parents are still teaching it to us. We've got to shake this off. So mind moves slow. So picture all of this as this is chemistry, and it's always the chemistry of the body that keeps telling us the truth. For us generators, the first line of truth defense is the sacral. It's a chemistry of a response. It's not a mental concept. It's just like a knee-jerk reaction that sometimes, the keys fell off the counter and you catch it before it hits the ground. That's not a mental concept. That's a chemistry that pushed that motion to do that. I want you to start to notice the difference between the easy responses that just say yes, no, or I don't know. It makes grunts and groans, and it has feelings, and it's like a little tug in a direction, but none of it's mental. So I'm going to ask you to start to notice the distance in time between the mental stuff, which happens about a skip of a record later, like a pothole. You drive over a pothole. How long does that last? An eighth of a second? Short, yeah. Right? Yeah. But you can't miss it, right? Because you drove over a dang pothole, That's about the amount of time it takes for the mind to get involved. Whereas the body, since it's all chemistry and electrical, it's moving at the speed of chemical electricity. Your responses are about as fast as a battery will turn on a flashlight. Now that's fast. That's wicked. It's way faster than the mind. The mind has to take a split second or a half a second to amp itself up, and then it starts trying to ask questions and make up a thing of why you can't listen to the response that you just had. And that's how it drowns it out, because the response is like a child, and the child is always right. The child is never wrong. Just like take that as a maxim of law, and you have to start seeing it, because only when you actually see this difference will you start to really seeing it kills it. Seeing it fixes and realigns. It kills the conditioning. Seeing it is the work. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. They're just yes, no questions. You'll notice I take great care to keep them yes, no. Okay. And we're going to see if your mind tortures yourself or just responds with and If you were 4, it would be and or I don't know. I don't know. I can't tell. Maybe. These are all possibilities, but mostly it's just yes and no, like our binary code in our computers, just yes and no. So Paula, did you take a job at a cafe at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah. At first, was it kind of exciting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Running into people, being busy, doing things. It was okay, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever think it was going to be a life's mission to be a cafe person?
No.
Okay, right. And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point along the way, did it start to get a little tiring or frustrating?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is it frustrating now?
Yes.
Do you dislike the job?
Yes.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
So what was your mind thinking at that time? It was going over all the politically correct things that had to get said about that sort of difficult question.
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that what it was doing?
Yeah. The first response is like, yes.
Yeah.
But there's aspects of it that I enjoy, but right now it's just,
I was just asking the job. The job is a thing you have to go to. And the fact of the matter is, yeah, you don't like it. but there's something rude about that. There's something definitive, and I shouldn't lock myself into a definitive answer. The 4-year-old didn't care. It might have liked it again the day later, but at that moment, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Think about it. The 4-year-old can simply be in a shopping cart with its mother and look at the little old lady in the line and say, "Oh, the little old lady's got a hairy mole on her face."
Uh-huh.
In an awake world, the little old lady would turn around. Sounds like a little generator boy you have there, Mrs. Edwards. She would say to my mother, and my mother, in her awake way, if she knew any of this, would be those two would laugh it off. But what happens when you say that? The adult there immediately corrects you, right? "Oh, honey, don't. It's not nice to say that." And they start teaching you about manners and politeness in that way. I call bullshit. That's BS. That's not true. That kid doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And so the correct response to the kid recognizing the big hairy mole on the little old lady's nose is, "That's correct, honey. Look at that." But we don't do that. So that starts the conditioning. In that moment, that child is taken away from their nature, but it is a big hairy mole. That's all it knows, because that's what's true. And it starts to think. And that's what
Right.
you just did in that moment. And I need you to see this split second. Did you notice I asked you and you sort of disliked it, but about a split second, took an eighth to a quarter of a second, maybe half a second, and the mind started coming up with things. So we're not. So recognize that was a chemistry. It wasn't a mental process that got to, not really. Yeah, I don't really like it. I don't like it. No, I don't want it. I don't like it. You're right, Dan. So let me ask you a couple more questions.
Okay.
You saw that one clearly, right? That one just stood right out.
Yeah, that did stand right out.
Yeah. Okay. Your boyfriend's a generator too, right? Yeah. You said that. Okay. So you guys will be able to ask each other questions about honesty and so forth.
Okay.
And just things. It'll be amazing when you see how this unfolds. So, have you been there at this job for a few months or more?
Yeah, I started in April.
Okay. Do you figure your time there is basically running its course?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
I think so.
Yeah. Might there be a problem with you leaving? Like, might you leave people high and dry somehow?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that your problem?
No.
Okay. Do you feel bad a little bit? Might you feel bad a little if that happens?
Yeah, a little bit.
Might she be able to guilt you into doing a little more than you would have, so that she doesn't have, right?
Yeah.
That might happen. Are you susceptible to that? You might find yourself doing it, won't you?
Yeah.
Is that possible? Yeah. Okay. In that moment, might it be likely that you'll still recognize, "I don't want to do this," but you do it anyways?
Mm,
Can't tell?
probably. I
Yeah.
can't tell,
You can't tell, right?
honestly.
Yeah.
It depends on the situation, what she asks, what
Right.
project she wants me to do. If it's simple and easy, sure. Like
Are you
this.
an idiot if you do anything other than what it was your time frame to leave is? If you do one more thing for her, does that make you a pushover?
No.
No, it doesn't, does it?
No.
Right. Might other people say, "Hey, that makes you a pushover"?
No.
Oh, good. Well, good for you. The world very often does that to people. So
Yeah.
if you end up having to do a couple things after the job's over, is that the end of the world?
No.
Right. Very good. So it sounds like there's not a lot of conflict here. Do you need to leave this job sooner or later?
Eventually,
Right.
just because of the transition I'm in, I feel like right now at the moment it's a little overwhelming with what I want to do.
Yeah,
So
this cafe job.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. So ultimately, is it going to make sense for you to just get out of this place and basically go on to that music thing more likely?
Yeah, makes sense.
Did you meet the people at the music place where you're going to do that grant, that work at that not-profit place?
Like, did I meet them or?
Yeah. Have you gone there yet?
Yeah, well, I currently am the level 1 director
Oh,
for
you're totally
the
there.
elementary school. So I already worked there. It's
Okay.
funny because they prospected me at the cafe. We were just chatting it up about music and teaching and stuff. And but so yeah, I already work there. And the schedule that I set up makes it logical for me to only work at the cafe in the mornings. And then I
Mhm.
have like evening times for the after school music program. So it like makes sense, but I don't know if I want to keep the cafe there.
Right, right. It sounds like you sort of want to ditch it sooner or later. And that has to be okay, is the point. This new job, you're there already. Do you like teaching? Do you like being that music director person
So we
yourself?
don't have the kids yet because they just started school. So right now we're just at the prepping stage.
Do you like it?
But yeah, I do like it. I'm excited for
Okay.
it.
Cool. That was a nice generated answer. See,
Cool.
these generated answers are easy. They're true. I kept you involved in yes, no, casual conversation so you could see where the ease is. Generated truth is easy, is
Yeah.
the thing. Mental mind games, as soon as there's a delay, gets instantly hard, and it's all not true. The experiment is to witness. Remember, the job is to just watch. It's
Yeah.
it's an alone job, not lonely, but it's alone. This is only you can do it. And you're
Mhm.
witnessing as an energetic response. I have a yes or a no for every last thing that can happen ever. That's what
Right.
you're recognizing. And you're going to start to recognize how really true that is and go through this little portion of time where it becomes harrowing and even scary because it's like it's hard thing to ask people to rely on. Don't know in advance, wait to respond. That's not a business plan.
Yeah.
Right? That's exactly the opposite of what the seven-centered world teaches us. Yet you'll find it serves you over and over and over again. And the second part of the experiment is to witness each time you don't do that. And you second guess the natural feeling that gave you the energy for the yes or the no, and witness how at the end of that, you suddenly, each time you didn't do it, you realize you run into resistance and
Mhm.
confusion, and you can't tell what's the right thing. It's
Mhm.
so simple that sometimes only the 4-year-old can understand this. So, two maxims of law with all of this. The kid is always right. And when I say always, I mean 100%. The little kid inside of you tells the truth.
Okay.
And you have to start seeing that because as you see that, it starts to undo the grip of the not self. It kills the not self, essentially. It puts it right in its place and it turns it back into what mind is supposed to be. It's supposed to measure and think up stuff after the truth has been delivered, not think up what is the truth. So that's all I want to really say about the sacral. It's this powerful diaphragm that makes damn sure you have a powerful energetic response, and it gives you 2 measurements, 3 measurements. One is, did my mind take over a split second later? That's a measurement that you have to watch. Am I frustrated or satisfied with any of this, and to what degree? That's a measurement. And my energy, it's just a literal easy. It's so easy. It's like, is it day or night? It's so easy. The measurement is my energy at 100% here, or is it some gradient or degree less, or is it like down to sucky? You know, is my energy just low? So start to witness that in your experiments so that you can understand that the higher the energy, the truer it is.
Yeah.
If something's got you running out the door, it's like, I gotta do this thing, and and you show up even if you're a little nervous because you don't know. Right-minded people get nervous a lot because we don't know if we know what we need to know, not
Yeah.
realizing we always know what we need to know as soon as we're excited about the thing and realize that energy always wins. Excitement, energy that is good and lit up, that's the 4-year-old. And the only time to really countermand the 4-year-old is when you recognize, well, I'm already in an adult life. It's like, I can't always listen to my 4-year-old. My 4-year-old, frankly, isn't going to want to do anything half the time except dig
Yeah.
a hole, play with his navel or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't know. It's self-absorbed. It's perfect, is what it is. God,
Mhm.
God doesn't make any mistakes. So, any questions about this generative, responsive, truth-telling chemistry?
No, not at the moment. I
Okay.
feel like right now what's like in my head is okay. So I know like previously talked about like double life, with like the 6-2 triple life manner. So I guess
Yep.
like I'm wondering like I do feel like I'm living like multiple lives and I don't really know what one thing I should do, or maybe all things work for me. Like, I don't know. I feel like it just doesn't really fit, but it does fit. That like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, what am I good at? Like, what's
The
my
first thing that you're good at, it's like the Karate Kid, where he had to go wax on, wax off in order and suddenly realize he was the Karate Kid. It wasn't until he did wax on, wax off that he was suddenly a Karate Kid, you know,
Yeah.
but he didn't know he was. The master had to show him,
Mhm.
right? And suddenly he saw it. He was like, oh my God, I can do this. But
Yeah.
he didn't know moving in. And it's a little bit of that process. So is what I can say, because the first thing you need to get good at is recognizing that you're no good at anything until you willingly reorient yourself out of a I must do process into a I must wait process.
Yeah.
I must, even if it's only a second more, I must wait to respond.
Mhm.
And to witness how it's sort of torturous to do that at first. Sometimes it's hard. It's like, I'm going to go do. I need to qualify that with one thing. There's plenty of times when your energy is lit up. Actually, as soon as your energy is lit up for something, go do. That's the time to go do. Go invent whatever it is you're going to go do. That's the time that you're manifesting, is when that energy is lit up. So part of the experiment is, like I said, witness as the energy's lit up for the thing, I'm going to go do.
Mhm.
And you witness it in its mundane form more than anything. Because that's our life is mundane. I mean, you know, we get up, we put keys in ignition, we make coffee, we go to work, but it's all mundane, not filled with necessarily exciting, incredible things.
Mhm.
So moving on from the sacral, that's the generator. The generator is here to have sustained energy and respond all day until they finally fall asleep. So next thing, sleep patterns. Do you force yourself to go to sleep or not?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
most
feel like,
generators do.
yeah. Sometimes I get like this big gush of energy right before I'm about to go to bed too.
Right, right. What have you made of that?
How so? What do you mean?
What do you make of that? Don't you ask yourself, why now? I'm supposed to go to
Yeah.
bed.
Yeah. Sometimes I just like spiral into thoughts and this and that and everything. It's just like, stop. Sometimes I bother my partner too while he's about to go to bed and I'm just like, haha, big burst of energy. But then I also remember, okay, I gotta like let that energy out somehow.
Well,
So I guess I'm still navigating how to do that.
let's talk about that a little bit, because the sleep pattern is so important for all the types. So for the generator, they're not supposed to have a set bedtime. If they
Okay.
want to have a set bedtime, what they're supposed to do is have sort of set activities that guarantee they've run that generative box out. Think
Interesting.
about when your 4-year-old went to sleep. It went to sleep when its face planted itself on a carpet.
Uh-huh.
That's when the 4-year-old went to sleep,
Uh,
essentially during the day, right? Totally just burnt out, motor done, kids asleep on in the front yard or something, you know, it didn't matter. Um,
mhm.
that's when we're supposed to go to sleep, when we finally exhausted the fuel of that thing, and our commercialized material world has us all sitting at desks in front of computers
Mhm.
and reading stuff and doing things that's not us. The cafe job and the job with the kids is actually, the job with the kids is going to be the most active, most
Yeah.
likely,
Kind of
you know.
excited for it because it's like near the end of the day and it's like, okay, I can come home and just fall asleep.
Right, and do a few things, and when bedtime comes, it'll be easier.
Mhm.
Generators we're here to work, and it's not work like a slave. That's the old way. We're here to find what lights us up, because then it's not work.
Yeah.
It's just what we feel like doing.
Mhm.
And when the generators on this planet are doing what they feel like doing, peace will come to this world. Until then, think about it. If the generative aura is what's conditioning this world, is you know, more than anything in a way, it says the world is angry and frustrated, and it's generating that. And
Mhm.
that's a pretty good description of a good chunk of what's going on in our world today. So,
Mhm.
um, moving on to the emotional solar plex center. So you got the strategy. You're in an experiment. The kid is always right. Seeing it kills it. These are things that you can do. So on to the emotional solar plex center. You have two pieces of definition moving into that which is being circled right now. You have the 59 and the 6, the channel of intimacy and mating.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sure. I bet you that just bothered Moana to no end. I love it. Sorry, Moana. Okay. So that channel of mating, and this is a channel design of intimacy, of breaking down barriers to union in order to create children, essentially. But it's really to create an intimacy of some kind. And then this other channel, which goes from 39 to 55, and that goes from the root center all the way up to the solar plex. And this is the channel of being in the mood or not. When you're in the mood can be your look at mood. You know how we give moodiness a bad name, like it's moodiness is bad. Oh, they're just moody, right? Look at mood. Let's go 180 degrees full spectrum and realize when you're in a really good mood, that's moody too. It's a form of moody, right? It's great mood. I'm off. This is great. You're sharing whatever, your boyfriend and everything. It just feels good and whatever. Spirit feels high, in other words. That's your deal. Your shtick is about when does my spirit feel high with this channel. And so it's a channel of moodiness on the high end of the wave and moodiness on the low end of the wave. And this channel of mating is about breaking down barriers, and it's hungry for various intimacies, but it doesn't know that it is necessarily. It can't always tell, but it's planing along. And it's waiting for this emotional moment to feel high and rich and filled with stuff. And it always comes with a form of an intimacy. Now, that can be amongst best friends or intimate, for God's sakes. You know, you're intimate with the employees at work at times because you have to say stuff and share things. But it very as much is the intimacy with the other. So it's a physical thing, too. I mean, very much it's a physical thing. This emotional definition says sometimes Paula goes way up on her wave. It's an emotional process. What's your understanding of that so far? I should ask.
I can relate. I feel I am a very like personal person. I like getting to know people, and I like people getting to know me as well. Like I'm just like an open book, and I find myself like craving that like a kind of attention or kind of like that connection, especially like when it comes to like my partner. Sometimes I'm like, I feel like I want a connection right now. I don't know how, but I want a connection. And I felt that as well with like parental figures in my life as well. Like I'm craving, I don't know how.
This intimacy, it slices like a knife through hot butter, and it breaks down the aura and the barriers of the other temporarily to achieve that type of union. And you've got 6 defined a couple times in you. You've got 59 defined twice in you. So this channel is well alive. And the thing is, it's quiet until it really comes alive. But when it gets high on its wave, it will move hell and earth. And people love, this is a channel of an organization. People love you in their organization. Everyone wants to try and get you into their organization because of this channel. It's part of a powerful WA configuration, which I can't go into now, but it just guarantees that you're part of the leadership and of rulership of companies. You fit into larger organizations. You may not want to. Donald Trump has that channel, by the way. Other leaders that have had that channel have found themselves like being in leadership positions just because it breaks down the barriers to union. It's a very leadershipy thing to do. You may not feel like a leader and you have to get elected to that. And it's not like you're seeking that, but it's just, in essence, you will be there even if it's not in title. It'll just sort of show up, things organize around things you're doing. And that's one of the reasons you would get annoyed with people always trying to organize you. You know, no good to try and organize Paula is no fun. That's your chart says no can do at all. I mean, not significantly. So emotionalness, let's just talk about it. We don't need the chart right now, Moana. But emotionalness, what is this? This is going up and down. This is hope to despair. This is joy all the way down to the depths of sadness. This is hope and pain, moving back again. Some people don't want to admit this even because it goes down so far. Have you ever been diagnosed with some clinical depression? Your chart says you have. Like, or people have suggested it to you, and there's this manic depressive thing going on. And gosh, you were so sad just the other day. What happened? You know what I mean? I think you might have an issue.
Yep. I've been told I've gotten I've been to therapy, and it's funny. Like, I am very like, oh, I know I feel like this because of this and this and that, and I know that this person acts like this because of this. Like, there's a lot of that, and I've definitely had my highs, and I've definitely had like some pretty low lows, and it's just like, but I don't really think that, but like, cause I know, but I have like I was diagnosed by my therapist like with PTSD. And sometimes it's just like it's gotten better, but like it just sometimes I just like remember like this like moment. I'm like, ooh.
There's trauma. I mean, there's things that are traumatic, but PTSD post the trauma as a syndrome, that's not
Yeah.
us. You don't have PTSD. What
Mhm.
you have is memory and mind telling you, and a lack of awareness about this wave, what it's actually
Mhm.
doing. What it does is, and you know it all too well, as soon as you go down on your wave and you come back up again, you're suddenly clear on something you weren't clear on before.
Mhm.
As soon as you go down on your wave, it's heavy because the emotional solar plex center is our newest awareness. It is waking up on this planet in our lifetime. We're part of that awakening. We didn't ask for it. It started a long time ago between Buddha and the birth of Jesus. It started to get really close to it around, the Middle Ages through to 1781. And now
Mhm.
it's on full track to be awake and working. What's it doing? It's an awareness center. It's giving us clarity. We're becoming emotionally clear, is the thing. And it's
Mhm.
hard to get to because it's a messy process. We were taught sadness is bad, yet
Mhm.
you know all about melancholy. Melancholy, melancholy. It shows up over and over again. Have you found yourself trying to deny it's there, or just telling someone else, oh, no, I'm fine. It's just nothing. I'm not, or never mind. Actually, that would be true when you told someone that. But have you found yourself trying to avoid it or explain it away at all? Or maybe making it you think that it's like, you might have an issue because you're just, why am I sad suddenly?
Some I feel like when I was younger, I was very like I like pushed down my feelings a lot. But I feel
Right.
like now as I'm getting older, I'm recognizing it a little bit more, and I'm more open about like, yeah, no, I'm not feeling this. Like I am feeling kind of this, or I am feeling kind of that, or um
There would have been a point maybe as a teenager where it got drastic because I've never seen a 5539 that didn't have drastic mood swings about something. I mean, to the point where parents might even get worried, and certainly eating disorders, various things where self-harm, unwilling to do a whatever just because this thing is so stubborn. This 3955 is stubborn. It's moodiness. It says, I am provocative to get the spirit to feel high because sometimes I don't know why, but the same glass is half empty. It was
mhm,
half full yesterday. And
mhm,
I can't tell why it's suddenly the spirit feels low. And it's this feeling of lack of abundance. It leads to
mhm,
a melancholy that feels like emptiness. At its
mhm.
lowest end, it gets into just emptiness. It's like, what's it all for?
Yeah, I've definitely felt that. I kind of talk about this. I'm trying to get into like keynote speaking as well. And so like part of my keynote talk is talking about this phase when I was in 7th grade. I have 3 fatherly figures in my life, and I was
Mhm.
rejected by all 3 of them. And it really, really hit when I was in 7th grade. And that was like a point in my life where I was just like really moody, trying really hard, and like people kept wanting to like push me down. I'm just like, no, I can't. Like I had like this big sense of like sadness in me, but I'm
Mhm.
just like, no, I have to keep pushing. And so that was like a big part of my life. And just like this past year, I've been trying to just like find my purpose, because I went into music education to become a music teacher, and then I came out working as a financial consultant, and doing like all of these like little things, like starting to get into the public speaking space, trying to find like what I wanted to do with myself. And a lot of the times I'm like, I feel like a failure. I feel like I'm not really going anywhere in my life. Like, what am I doing? And it isn't until now where things are coming to me, right? Like I was working at the cafe and this lady comes up, says something about her student. We start talking and she's like, oh yeah, I work for this after school music program. And I said, tell me more. And it was something that aligned with my values. It was like, I realized that I want to be what little me needed growing up.
Right.
And that's really like, I see that now. And now that I'm like approaching closer to this job, I feel so much closer to this. I got a speaking gig. Like, I'm so excited for that. So it's like all these things that it's just like, okay, it's finally feeling like it's clicking together. But there were moments where I'm like, what am I doing with myself? Like, I just suck. Like, why can't I just get abundance and like the right
Here's
things
what
to
happens with all of
life?
this, and it's really
Uh-huh.
important to recognize. So this emotional wave is a chemistry. It's designed to give us awareness over time in a cyclical wave that has to go down into sadness and melancholy in order to create the awareness that as it comes back up, it gets clear on. This is
Uh-huh.
a wave, and it's a, you can guarantee, and in your case, it's very much a spike. It'll spike up and spike down as
Mhm.
much as this wave process. But as it goes down, there's this sense of sort of disliking it or dreading it. Sounds like you're getting over that part. It's if you were little, it would have been told to you, and your parents knew. They would have said, "Oh, honey, no, this is great. You're just going down a little bit. It means you're about to get smarter. It means you're about to get more intelligent."
Mm,
And I would like you to recognize every
interesting.
time you've gone down, you became more intelligent on the way up. 100%, no
Yeah,
exceptions. Is that true?
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Generated response. That was a generated response. Yeah, so that's true. So that's a pretty big deal to notice that, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
women understand this whole chemistry thing. You guys have lots of chemistry. You have babies, you know what I mean? You have a monthly cycle, all these things. You know, when you were a little girl going through all that stuff, right? Becoming a young woman, remember the nerves and stuff. Oh my God, I need supplies. What's it going to be like? All the things, right? I had two girls, they went through it. And then as soon as it was over, a month or two later, you're an old pro, right? No,
Yeah.
it's a nuisance at worst. And you get used to it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of chemistry to get used to, don't you think?
Oh yeah.
And it goes on month long. It doesn't stop. The chemistry is always there. Oh, I'm fertile these 4 days. Oh, I'm premenstrual. This. Oh, I'm post. You know, all the. You guys have
Mhm.
100 names for the phases of this
Yep.
of your moon. You know.
Oh, this is
I
the
don't.
best time for me to do this, and this is the best time
Yes,
to do that. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. It's like I need chocolate and steak. There's a time for that too. Oh,
Yeah.
right. And there's even a time when you'll maybe even tell your boyfriend, it's like, oh honey, I'm gonna be moody. I'm moody today already. I could, you know,
Yeah.
that's a lot of freaking awareness, don't you think?
Yeah.
Why do
It
you have
is.
so much awareness about that chemistry? It's because your parents or the kids in class and the right teacher and the world told you what was going to happen. And you
Mhm.
already knew from books and the folklore is out in the world. Their girlfriends told you someone went first. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You were made aware at a young age. That's the
Mhm.
only difference. You were made aware. So now we're doing it again with very complex chemistry that doesn't bleed, you know. So you got that going for you. But it does exude and pour out in the form of bad feelings, what we've labeled as bad. And now you're going to start to see each one of them. It takes a little bit, you know, but you'll start to see each
Mhm.
one of them as a corrective mechanism, making you more intelligent and creating a clarity over something you previously weren't clear on. And at the end of it all, allowing you to do what the plane does. The plane has a universal love of all of humanity and of itself, and it simply wants to take what was a crisis and spread it across the plane,
Mhm.
spread it across the prairie. Let me sprinkle my magic goodness of awareness across the prairie and share that with everyone else. That's the only time you'll see the change you want to see and come to the completion that needs to happen. Um, it's profound. And so there's no truth in the now for the emotional being. When I say no truth, there's a generated truth. Oh, stop, turn, I don't like it. I do like it. That's all true. But
Mhm.
as soon as the decision gets to be a little bit bigger than, you know, when do I brush my teeth or, you know, what coffee do I want this morning? you start going through a clarity process. And as soon as the process is big enough, like moving from one job to another, you will go through an emotional process. Now, you might only go down a little and up a little, hard to say, but you'll know what it is the point. And the experiment is to keep watching it. And sooner or later start to realize the degree to which you go down is the degree to which the intelligence you're about to procure is high. It's incredible. So, and it retools the emotional process into something that you can even look forward to enough to where it's like, I guess I'm about to find out something new. And realize emotional clarity. Look what the mind does. The mind is aware. It's got an awareness, right? It's aware that I have to measure this and juxtapose it with that. And, I need the mercury to stay at 98 degrees or I'm running a fever. That's a measurement, right? It's a great awareness. It measures. My guns are bigger than yours. That's what it did in the past. It measured how to make ships cross oceans. That's all the work of the mind. And this brain system, it's incredible. It makes cell phones, for God's sakes. So, but it holds on to memory over all the time. There is no up and down process with it. It's all of it. And so it's no longer in charge of our life. The spleen is aware. We have this mammalian awareness. We all know it. The hair on the back of our neck goes up, a sudden instinct to duck, turn left when you should have turned right or something, or right to fight, flight, whatever. Instinctual survival in the moment, momentary awareness. We got that. That's not very emotional. It's cold, in fact. The emotions say, no, none of that. None of that. You're going to A, slow way down. B, no rash decisions. C, doesn't matter what your mind thinks. This is not where this clarity is going to come from. And D, I have to go through this process of going sometimes way down and coming way back up. And down on the wave, fertile, rich, Mother Nature's dark soil ready to grow the seeds of what's next. Coming up on the wave, the seeds have bloomed. I'm now a pretty flower. I'm out in the world contributing whatever my newest awareness is. And I feel good. It feels good. And ultimately, it feels so good when you come up out of this thing that it becomes intoxicating to the other. The emotional solar plex is rich with intoxicating juiciness. And you will have recognized when you were in school, as a younger girl turning into a young woman, and through your adolescence and even into your 20s, people were attracted to you. They were just attracted, and they wanted to get with you, and they wanted to knock boots is what they wanted to do, period. I mean, tell me it's not true.
No, it's true.
Right. And you've just learned to deal with that or whatever. That's that powerful mating. It drew men, if they could have seen the primal versions of themselves, if they could have been a clinician watching themselves, of like, oh, the puma is going to move in for the kill. Oh, look, it's trying to mate with the puma S. You know what I mean? It's just, right. But that's what all the men would have been doing over and over again. They didn't know that per se. Their chemistry knew that, and it's no one's fault. Now that you're older and you can recognize all this stuff, you can realize how juicy that really is. It's not like you said no to all of them, So you've already had your share of experience. Your sixth line, you had all 6 lines have a version of a promiscuous time in their life where they're experimenting with what's this and what's that. And when you got all the emotional definition, people would have drawn to you. Men would have told you the most amazing stories to get next to you as soon as you gave them 1 inch of resistance. Oh, no, she might go away. She might go, no, tell her the next thing. And so you learn to even discern lying bullshit half the time. That's what these channels do. And they made you clear on all of that. You are smiling at all of this. What? Tell me, what's...
I think it's funny. I feel... I can see that. Like, I tend to have a lot more guy friends. A lot of them do stick to friends I've never really met them, Right. But I could definitely see it. I was friends with the girlies. I was friends with the guys. Like, I was a very social person. And it's funny because I don't realize till years later, they're like, oh yeah, like I had a crush on you. I'm like, what?
They all had a crush on you one way or another. You wouldn't have known.
But there are moments moments. And then there's also like the weird, like sometimes I feel like I was always that, like not the final destination. I was like the girl that was like the filler
Interesting.
until the right person came along. I came to that
Yeah.
realization the other day. I'm like, I felt like that a lot.
Yeah.
And no.
Yep. Yep. Totally
Like,
normal.
yeah, and it's
Because
just not
when the
right.
people, well, they're attracted to this emotional solar plex center. Half the planet is open emotionally. And
Mhm.
when they don't know this, they're just attracted like a bug to light because the solar plex is where the juiciness is. In the
Mm.
tribal sense, it's where all that comforting supportiveness is and a sensitivity to the needs of others. And it's like it feels rich and it's willing to mate that way. So that's an
Mhm.
intimacy that way. In the personal stuff, it's which is the channel you have, it's about a romance, it's about a personalness, it's about a type of an affection that is like one-on-one. You've got to be there with that person and figure out what that is. And it's an intimacy that comes through one-on-one social interaction. And suddenly you're with somebody and the whole world has disappeared because you've just been talking to them for hours and they you. That's that channel of emoting that you have.
Mhm.
And then you also have definition on the outside part of this, which is all the experiential side. Everything's a crisis. What's it going to be like? I don't know what it's going to be like. The world feels like a crisis.
All the
This is some
time.
right. And that's that's basically the crisis is just waiting for the change. That's all.
Mhm.
And you keep becoming emotionally clear, recognizing there was no crisis.
Okay.
Have you noticed?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Oh,
I definitely, resonate with that.
look back over time. How many crises were there really? Two? Four? Couple? Right? But how many perceived crises were there? Thousands
Yeah.
or hundreds. I mean, so many. It's on
Yeah.
and on. It kept. You have this gate of crisis in your body graph. It's in your emotional solar plex center. It's in a defined center. It's this gate
Mhm.
of crisis. It's called the I Ching called it the darkening of the light, and you have it twice. Gate 36
Okay.
and gate 36. Um, for the 6 and for the 36, this is your incarnation cross. It's the peacemaker and justice. That's what it's after. But in its third line phase, it's basically, the one who's going to bump into this and bump into that and try something and not know if it's even the thing it's supposed to do. And it always felt like a crisis was coming.
Mhm.
This is an emotional process. The clarity to recognize the experience was not a crisis. It was something to experience. And gate 6 in the 6th line says, I'm the peacemaker. It's this justified recognition that it knows it has the emotional power to simply quell the conflict. And in
Mhm.
its true self, you always know it as a victory, a type of I help the conflict quell itself. You're Mrs. Peacemaker. And if the conflict goes on too far, you end up with the emotional resolve to face the conflict and do what the peacemaker does on the other side, instills the peace, whether they want it or not. So have you noticed it's always up to you whether the intimacy takes place? It's never quite up to the other. Gate 6 does that. It closes off to it or it opens up. It's like a valve. It's like the pH of the body. And so you're always like the petals of a flower. They're opening to it or they're closing to it. At night they close up, keep their warmth. And the sunshine comes, they open up more and let the bees come and pollinate and so forth. I'm using, all these metaphors, but it's still intimacy. It's beautiful is what it is. It's
Mhm.
supposed to be that way. Except in your life, emotionally speaking, you would have learned to see this as a crisis. And so you've been on crisis control one too many times.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's who you're not.
Okay.
You've never been that. Only in response, gathering responses, will you start to see the truth of that. And you'll start to realize, you know what? Let it be the feeling of a crisis. It never turns out to be one. And
Mhm.
now I realize I can't call it a crisis until I'm clear.
Yeah.
Clarity comes by waiting for the wave to move, either up and down or down and back up, or move through a wave process.
Mhm.
You're in music, so you know this. Most music, like you pluck a string, that's your basic sine wave, right?
Yeah.
You know, the voice is a sine wave, and it's got mixtures of other wave types in the actual human voice, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
But mostly, so music is mostly the sine wave. Well, you don't get to even hear the note until that sine has had its bolic and its parabolic function, till had its up cycle and its down cycle. If you stop at one thing, no sound. There's no music. So you have to wait out that cycle until to become clear, or else the crises keep telling you you're not good enough. The crisis is one of not knowing what to say, not feeling good enough, not feeling strong enough, and hanging on to stupid ideas that were no good for you.
Yeah.
That's your crisis in a nutshell every time.
Mhm.
That sound true?
Exactly true.
Yeah. Well, ask yourself, how could I know that? I've only met you tonight. We're
Right.
looking at the sun. Right. It's because we're looking at mechanics in a body graph that are so steady. They're as steady as the fact that you have, dark hair, or you came out a girl instead of a guy.
Mhm.
Those are steady genetics. You can't change them. Same thing, you cut your finger, right? The blood coagulates. No choice. You're not going to bleed out because you got a cut on your finger.
Mhm.
It's going to stop. And you have no choice in that. The genome did that for you. And it's the same with all of these aspects. So the emotional process is to be ridden out and allowed and recognized that you're always getting more aware, intelligent, emotionally resilient, and you're always becoming clear on the thing you weren't clear on before. Now, that's an awareness process that gives us resilient emotional clarity. Have you noticed when you're finally clear on the thing, no one can budge you? No, I'm
Mhm.
not doing that. I'm clear. I might have been wishy-washy a moment ago, but I'm clear now. I'm clear. The
Mhm.
answer is yes, or the answer is no effing way.
Yeah.
You have to, you have to. No, I'm
Once
clear once, right? You only
Mhm.
need to that. You only need to be clear once. Only the emotional beings can actually know that, what the
Mhm.
profundity and the strength of that clarity.
Yeah.
And it can really move the wheel. It can move that dial like a lot when that happens. It can break up the relationship. It can say yes to the marriage. It can, whatever, all the things. So,
Yeah, no, I used to be in a manipulative, abusive relationship back in college. And a lot of the times I'd be like, no, this is how I feel. And this is this and this and that. And a lot of the times I was very pushed down when it came to that. Like those were set aside to the point where like he
that's
was
That's because
changing
you're an
the.
incredible gem, dude. You are an incredible gem that, as it relates to the biological functions of this planet and us and the chemistry of us, you're this biological chemistry gem that anybody would fear losing and turn into crazy over. So that guy that tried to keep you in one place, he turned into crazy.
Interesting. Well, the
Is,
last girl he
is that true?
dated, well, almost killed herself twice because of him. So I don't know. Maybe we both have it or something, but yeah,
Well,
no.
again, it's not even his fault. Human design helps us even have empathy for the psychopath and the narcissist. It's not their
Mhm.
fault. They didn't know. Um, and there's a certain amount of narcissism and psychopathicness inside of all of us. There's supposed to be. I mean,
Interesting.
narcissists just said, "I love looking at me." Sometimes it's healthy to love me,
Yeah.
um, too much, and you turn into a narcissist. I get it. Um, so
Interesting.
this emotional process, moving up and down on a wave, filled with crisis and need, and feeling like the spirit is low, senses of emptiness and abundance. This is a process that keeps making you more intelligent. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And it is so juicy because there's so many activations. Again, the solar plexus is where the sex and the pleasure and the good food is. It's where the
Mhm.
fast car is fun, not just fast. I mean, it's where the movie gets gripped and you're taking on an emotional roller coaster ride. The juice of all of this stuff is given awareness into the human condition through this emotional solar plex, which has only come online since 1781. So
Oh,
it's a pretty big deal. How much more time you got?
I got time.
Okay,
Whatever,
good,
whatever.
good.
You're good.
So the last thing about the solar plex is because you're a generator, everything about your awareness on this keeps coming through responses. So when the response is easy and you don't need a clarity process, like, let's go grab some hamburgers or something.
Mhm.
You don't need to go through a wave for that, maybe. Um, that's easy. That's just a
Yeah.
response. But when it's an emotional process, you're still getting your truth. It's just that
Mhm.
it keeps changing. So, oh, I don't like that. Then a little bit later, well, it's not so bad. And then a little bit later, you know what? I should just integrate it. And a little bit later, whatever. And suddenly you're clear and you'll take aspects of that thing that sucked and other aspects you're going to ditch and you're going to figure out how to make that all work. And you're clear.
Mhm.
That was a series of 10,000 responses you collected, like an MRI image that collects 10,000 things and comes up with a nice, clear thing that the doctor can look and say, look, see, there's that thing.
Mhm.
So clarity comes through the act of still following your strategy. And then you obey this authority, which says, as soon as you can't tell you're right, there's no truth in the now. No truth. So it means everything about the strategies you deploy when even taking jobs. If you're not sure, say, hey, I need to sleep on it. It's about telling everybody who asks for your generative energy to say, no, I can't tell. No truth in the now. Sounds pretty good, but let me sleep on it. What that does is it filters out the people who can't wait for you to sleep on it.
Mhm.
The people that can wait become the people who are for you. Those become the opportunities that are for you. Take that to heart and take that
Yeah.
literally. Yeah,
Yeah.
because your incapacity to be super strategic, you can still be strategic. I do it all the time. I'm strategic with the things I know I am. I just don't
Mhm.
plan it out. So in the moment, suddenly a job thing of this or that, an opportunity of any kind, it's like, that's a lot. Before I commit to that, I need to get back to you next week. You can even tell them I have a process I go through. It's an emotional process. So if you want the best of me, you'll wait. And if you're a clown, you'll run away.
Right.
And suddenly, when you do that a time or two, you'll realize the emotional person with the gate of crisis, always feeling like there's some kind of conflict and crisis in the world, is going to say to themselves, and the others even going to say, they'll be like, if I do this enough, I will only get the opportunities that are right for me. As opposed to what you've done on one too many times is, if I don't do this, it'll be a crisis. I'll miss out. It's so bad. I'm going to miss out. I know you've gone through that process because every emotional person has. That's the thing. You never miss out. That's the point, ever. And your 4-year-old knew that. I'm not doing that. I can't tell you. And then in the afternoon, because they lived in quicker time, then they could tell. I'm emotionally clear. I'm doing that. That's where the 4-year-old, again, would have told you what was true. It's just that they had a sped up time frame. They lived in dog years because they were 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So do recognize that the feeling of a crisis is healthy. It's okay. And it's not actually a crisis. And when you watch yourself, but I still hate it. If that moment comes where I don't want to feel it, not now, damn it.
Mhm.
Just that's a part of your experiment. Later on, you'll be like, I recognized I wanted that to be not right now. And I had no choice. And there it came anyways. So what was that? I don't want it to be right now. Was that a mental construct? It was. I thought I needed to be something else,
Mhm.
is what you'll find. So embrace this emotional wave and follow your strategy because it's the experiment of a lifetime, and seeing it corrects it all. Seeing it kills the conditioning.
Okay.
Open centers. What have you learned about these open centers? It's the
Oh.
last thing I'll do to sort of round this thing out because I assume we've gone on long enough.
Yeah. Learned a lot, honestly. Just taking that moment to just like sit back and not really like, I don't know, like I tend to worry a lot about the future, about this. There's a crisis going on, there's this and that. Like I worry so much about the future and yeah, no, there has to be a certainty of like, yeah, it's okay. It's a thought that you have. It's okay to just be in the present, be in the now. So, and it's something I definitely have to, yeah. Oh,
Let's put them into your awareness. Oh, talk about open ego, open head, and keynote. Talk about the. Oh,
it is.
yeah,
It is
I'm
about
getting to
worthiness.
that. Yeah, I'm getting to that right now, actually. So
Uh-huh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 open centers you have,
Mhm.
right? And so from the head down to the throat, what happens is openness guarantees that you're open to that stuff. But our old strategic conditioning tells us you're not supposed to be open there. You're supposed to have it fixed. So the head center, the pineal gland, and the deep gray area of the mind that retains all the memory and does everything with memory. This is thinking about all the things. It's a pressure center designed to pressure you to think about this and think about that. We need that, right? You better think about this, because if not, you're not going to survive sometimes. So we need that. And it pressures the concepts that come through. It's thinking about everything, but it has a not self voice that happens a split second later after the response, and quiets the response and makes the response mute. It mutes your truth. And what it's doing is it's thinking about too many things. And suddenly it's thinking about everything. And next thing you know, it's thinking it needs to have an answer for every last thing. And the next thing you know, it's thinking about everything and things that don't matter. It's a pressure to think about things that don't matter to get questions you don't have answers to.
Yeah.
That's who you're not. What this is really supposed to do is just be open, like you just said. And it's wide open. There's no activations on it. So it's just sitting there not even knowing what to think. It doesn't know what to be pressured by. Now, the seven-centered old conditioned way has you thinking that that's a problem. It's not. It's what you are, is the person that allows all the. If you have an open head center, it means the entire inspiration field. It's what it's doing is, by the way, it's trying to translate existence. It's under pressure to translate existence. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
That's what the head center's job is, to pressure the translation of existence and yourself, and to answer the question of what the hell. What am I doing? What the hell? What the hell? And it's always, this question is always showing up. And so it's under pressure to think about everything. And all you have to recognize is, as soon as you have mental anxiety because too much is rolling through, you've lost track of that you're not supposed to think about everything. You're thinking about too many things, and you're thinking about things that don't matter to your right now.
Okay.
Remember, the generator is only now. It's only oriented in response. So it means it's the ultimate existential being. And too many things go flying through, but only one thing matters right now. But 800 things are flying through. And sometimes it's not even one thing. Sometimes it's truly nothing matters right now, but you're convinced it does. Next center, the Ajna center. The Ajna center says, I have a concept for this and I have a concept for that. And you have two themes. You have the themes of 47 and 4. And 4's got formulas, a youthful folly. I can think of anything. And 47 says, it's a little bit oppressive. I got to come up with an aha moment. I've got to settle this confusion. And it feels like it doesn't realize enough. And 4's over there teasing, well, I might realize this. I have an idea for the future. I have a new opinion for this. I have a new fact. And it's, one is youthful and one is like an old man that's just been oppressed its whole life. It's not actually oppressed. What this concept factory is doing is it's coming up with ideas and formulas. Ideas and formulas. That's you. Concepts through ideas and formulas. When it's open, it thinks it has to be certain about all of that. That's the not self voices. Am I still trying to pretend I'm certain? Do I think I'm certain about all of this? Do I think certainty is actually important? Your whole life, uncertainty has been a crisis for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you know that's not true.
Okay.
Listen, hey, you're all better now. You'll go be better tomorrow.
I'm healed.
Right. See, you're healed. Because the strange man told me the thing. Okay, I'm all better. We know that's not how it works, but now it's in the experiment. You can't unhear what you just heard. So certainty and coming up with, being able to come up with an answer for everything, and being able to basically have the realization that isn't necessarily there. You certainly think that you're supposed to be able to do that. So when you put these two centers together, what you've got is, I'm under pressure to think about things that don't matter and concern myself with the certainty I don't have about all of that. And if someone calls me out on this, it's like, well, gosh, Paula, I mean, you said you had the thing. Do you know the thing? And suddenly you're called out, and it's like, I'm not certain. And what do? You lie. Sometimes you lie and pretend you have a certainty, or brush it off, or just like, never mind it for a moment and hope the subject goes away. None of that's true. And the mental anxiety that comes from the 4-year-old didn't end up with any of that. 4-year-old's like, I wasn't certain. I told you I wasn't certain. I don't want to be under pressure for it. I'm trying to dig a hole. That's what the 4-year-old said. It didn't care. So do you give yourself permission for uncertainty when the other is calling you out about something, or even asking you questions, especially at work? You're supposed to be certain, right?
Right.
Do you give Do you give yourself grace to be uncertain even in the difficult times?
I'm trying to. I recognize it's something that I've struggled with.
Right.
But yeah.
Because there is no pressure to make you feel uncertain. That's not your pressure.
Mhm.
It's not. You'll know what certainty is as a response as you get clear emotionally when you go through a pattern of mutating what you focused on, and then suddenly you realize the spirit is full again. No, I'm clear. Are you certain too? Yeah, I'm certain as I need to be. That's how you get to certainty, and that's how you get to answering the question. Everything else doesn't matter.
Mhm.
That's a hard thing to get used to, but everything matters. I have to pay my bill tomorrow. I got to do this and I've got to whatever. That'll matter then.
Yeah.
It truly does not matter to your right now. And
Mhm.
you'll know when it does. Open throat center, not self-question for this open throat center, the thing that tortures us. Listen, when you have an open throat center, you're supposed to be a singer. Apparently you sing. I'm
I
not
do.
even kidding. Yeah, if you pull up the charts of all the famous singers, you'll find only 20 or 23% of the planet has an open throat center, yet 40% of the singers are open throat.
Interesting.
Yeah, or maybe 50.
Funny because my mom's always like, you should be a singer. And the practical side of me is like, how can I be a singer? Like, it doesn't seem practical, right?
Right.
But
Well,
huh,
you love it. You
I
want
do.
to sing. You just want your voice to sing like a little dove,
I
and you
do.
want it to be music out in the world. Right. Listen, that I do, you just said was a generated response. It came with a generator's tone. And it's true. So open throat is designed to become all these things become wise. You become wise on what does matter as you become emotionally clear. You become wise on what is actual certainty. And you hear it in others over and over again. You become wise in their certainty. It's like, hey, you know what? I heard that guy. I made a judgment call. They were certain. So now I'll go with that for now until I get clear elsewhere. Otherwise, open throat centers to become wise on all the ways you can articulate and manifest and say and sing and project out of your throat, which is
Mhm.
the source of manifestation on this planet, what we say and what we do. So
So when it comes to like keynote speaking, is that also something that's like calling to me? Because I find myself going
totally,
on stage and talking
totally.
and helping, inspiring others and stuff. And yeah,
Well,
I feel geared towards that.
think about it. So the open throat is designed to become wise on all the ways that communication will be effective in the world, but
Mhm.
it's totally insecure about its capacity to communicate.
Mhm.
Why should it be secure and at all? It's open. It's got no steady life force going to it. I have a defined throat center. When I start talking, I'm quite secure in what the hell. I don't care ever, and I can
I
find out
just
I've
want to be
went too much.
sure, I
Right.
yeah.
And just think about what you just said. I want to be sure.
Mhm.
You don't. You
Yeah.
want to find yourself responding in the moments you're clear to that you're going to go speak at and come hell or high water, sink or swim and find out what that's all about.
Mhm.
You're designed through the cross of the plane to go through the conflict of getting into the spot that's not necessarily comfortable so that you can become the role model that tells us, been there, done that. This is what that was all about. And by the way, not a red alert. I thought it was a crisis. It's not.
Mm.
It's not. Again, you've only had 4 or 5 real crises in your life. Just remember that.
Okay.
Every other time was a false alarm. So maybe we should stop, what's the old saying, fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice, shame on me. So now it's time to recognize that it's like, I don't need to.
Yeah.
And you'll even fake it. You'll be like, but I still think it's a crisis. And you'll be like, well, why don't I fake it? And say, well, maybe it's not. I don't think it is.
Yeah.
And then your not self-will mind will say, I don't really believe that, Paula, I don't believe that. And your true self mind will say, well, I don't know if I believe it either, but I'm saying it. So fake it till
Yeah.
you make it. Fake it till you
Um,
make it. It's
Like it's,
okay to
I've
do.
I've heard that so many times. Yeah.
And it's true because
Yeah.
it teaches us. If you constantly tell yourself you're beautiful and you're great and you love me, you will finally believe it. So
Mhm.
is it really faking it? Or is it just doing what the chiseler does who makes statues, chiseling away the pieces to reveal the truth underneath the
Mhm.
statue? So that's what it really is. Um, so open throat center, the not self theme of it is am I still trying to attract attention? Am I still doing whatever it takes to attract attention? Do I feel under a pressure to attract attention? Do I forget when to stop talking? Do I talk too much? Do I talk too little? Do I think about when I'm going to talk? Do I not know what to do with my hands while I'm waiting to think about the certainty I need to have about things that don't matter when I think I need to talk? Think about all the nervous things you've done with your hands, your position, how you sit, all the stuff, because it's coming your turn to talk, or you know you're something to say and you're not sure. All that nervousness is who you're not. And the emotional solar plex is the king of nervousness. So you can allow the nerves and just recognize they're moving through, but dang it, lean in and put yourself in that public speaking place so you can find out what the right timing is. What the open throat ultimately becomes wise in is the right timing to speak. And when is that right timing for you? Sacral says. Sacral says the right timing. So you are waiting. Wait to speak. Have you noticed sometimes you'll start having nervous speech and you'll just start speaking, contributing your ideas into the speech and feeling like you need to command the presence. You need to have their attention in that moment. I'm keynoting this 45 and this 8, by the way, and suddenly you're saying too many words. You overstayed your word welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like an idiot because of that, or stupid, or out of place, or embarrassed?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Right. That would have been normal. However, don't. Now it's a joke. Oh, Jesus. My not self made me talk too much. My not self made me talk too little. My not self made me think about talking in the first place, when you're supposed to just allow the talk field to flow through, and sacral will be like, blah, 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 in response. Says the generator. Good generator.
Yeah.
That's our language. Our language is and and we know it well because it's true. No way,
Yeah.
There's a lot of juice inside of and for us. Or I'm not in the mood. I can't tell. Well, why not? Because I'm not in the mood. Well, why not? Because I'm not in the mood. Avoid letting people ask you a question that you feel like you have to answer about your mood, your feelings, why on anything. I don't know. Sacral said. It's the ultimate because I said so, like a parent does to a child, So get used to that. And sometimes you will have an emotional swing and your friends will ask you, hey, what's the matter? Or even your boyfriend might, your partner might at times, right?
Yeah. It's funny because I ask him a lot and he's like, and it's
I
just
don't
like,
know.
how do you not know? Like that's my
We're generators. We don't know. And by the way, that's not a question he can answer.
Yeah, right.
It's not a yes or no question. In that moment of, I don't know, that was true. The only thing that will get more truth out of him in that moment will be more yes, no questions.
Okay.
In that moment, that's it. How do you not know that? Can't be answered by a generator.
Right.
You can't answer it when we ask you the same thing.
Right. That's
Generators can't answer those questions in those moments. Later, they can answer them if someone's asked them the right questions or they've gone through their process for a little bit. But just yes and no. That's why I call us dumb generators. We need it yes, no first.
I find us getting better at asking those questions to each other, especially when we do brief at night. We just ask each other like the and it's just kind of
and go back and forth and it doesn't even matter. And sometimes you can even be a little bit tuned out because he's all absorbed with his thing. 2/4 are self-absorbed in their own little trip half the time. You have a second line in your body graph. Sometimes you're absorbed in your own little trip. And so you guys are talking at each other, not with each other. That's
sometimes,
okay. Sometimes. That's funny. And you're supposed to laugh at that is the point. It can't be helped. These are mechanics. They play themselves out. And you have love when you keep recognizing, you keep waking up with each other this next day. Each day you made the commitment to stay together. It's like, you know what? That's going to become a pattern, and you're good at surfing the extremes of humanity. That much I can tell. You've got a 15 in your body graph. It's in your sun earth, and this thing is about momentum. 15 is about building momentum. It's always getting momentum. And 2 is the hermit. I think it's momentum. 15 is momentum, or is it? Someone will probably tell me quicker than me. I want to make sure I don't get it wrong. 14, 15. Influence. I was wrong. 15 is influence. It builds momentum, but it's this modesty of a right action that in a sudden moment in time gets recognized and has its influential way because it can't help it. It loves the extremes of humanity when it's called out. The rest of the time, it doesn't want to be bothered by them. And that's okay. So open throat center, am I still trying to attract attention? Is it artificial? Am I contrived in how I am trying to attract attention? Open spleen. Open spleen says, am I holding on to things that aren't good for me? Am I trying to be spontaneous when it's not spontaneous in the now? And am I trying to hold on to a spontaneous feeling that isn't good for me? Am
Mm-hmm.
I trying to hold on to a boyfriend that isn't good for me, a situation, an idea, a mindset, a set of circumstances, a job, a
Yes.
relationship, anything? Am I holding on to this thing that I think is PTSD because my father figures didn't do the thing? You know, am I holding on to that? Because that's not me. Your
Mhm.
4-year-old doesn't want to hold on to it. Your emotional center wants to simply have it become clear that it doesn't matter. And the generated right now in you, I promise you, is like, I don't care. I don't want to care about that. I'm living right now. A dog walked by. I just want to bark.
Mhm.
You know, that's pretty potent when you think about it that way, because that's the generator living its best life and being able to truly manifest in this world. You can't manifest until you live out your responsive nature. And when you do, then you can manifest and go move mountains, like literally. You need to do something.
No, my cat was about to jump on the
Oh,
screen.
nice.
Oh,
I have to
cute.
go let my cat in soon. So this open spleen makes you feel unsafe. Sorry, Mo, and I know we're getting onto this open spleen makes you feel safe or not. And when it's open, there's always this sense of I'm listening to everything in my body. I don't know, am I perfectly safe? And it's always working on keeping itself safe and healthy. And is it right? Open spleen people very often notice every little thing that goes on in their body. Did I have a sniffle? Did it matter? Let me take some vitamin C. I better sleep this way. No, I got a crink in my neck when I did that. So we're always taking care of ourselves.
Mhm.
Have you ever learned to think that you're actually afraid of your own health, of your own self, of your own wellness, that you might not have it?
Yeah, I feel like I have actually lacked in taking care of myself in a lot of ways. I feel like growing up, I was so focused on taking care of others, I never really took care of myself. And now I'm kind of at that phase where it's like, okay, I need to get better at this. I need to eat better, like eat in the right way. I kind of wanted to ask you about like the whole indirect eating, like how
Have you
does
noticed you eat more at nighttime?
I've noticed I want to just like indulge and snack or something.
At,
Um,
at night, as soon as the sun starts to go down and or you're indoors, that you make the light be. Have you noticed you make the light be less when you eat?
yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, that's natural for you. And you were doing that ever since you were little. When you first got food on your plate and you were at a thing, if you could, you moved to the place that cast a little shadow, if you could. Is that true?
Yeah. Sometimes I do like to just like eat on the front porch. It's like a little shaded area though. Like it's just nice to just
Absolutely.
like sit and watch my
Plenty of
dog.
light, but it's indirect.
Okay.
It's just literally as simple as it sounds. It's about that indirectness where it becomes complicated and sophisticated and nuanced and rich is in your experience.
Mm-hmm.
On the porch at this time of day with these right it's about creating the right conditions and circumstances under which you're going to eat. And it's about doing it for just the amount of time that the food's intelligence, because food has its intelligence, right? It's filled with
Mm-hmm.
atomic material. It's got to be
Mm-hmm.
intelligent about something. And it passes about 7 sphincters in our body on the way down, right? I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how many, but it's a bunch of them squishing it down. Each one of those is signaling back to the mind and the brain system and everything in the whole pituitary lymph system in our body, signaling back the health of that food, what's about to come, and feed the brain system that's doing all the thinking. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a wicked important job, and it's only while you're eating. It's not after you ate.
Mm-hmm.
It's only while the food intelligence is passing past the esophagus on its way to being, into the tummy to go and do what it's going to do and enrich your body and feed your mitochondria so you can have, calories to do things with. Um,
Yeah.
so that's what your environment is about. I mean, excuse me, that's what the eating is all about. And it is important to look at it that way. But
Mm-hmm.
back to the spleen and feeling safe in your body. Of course, I won't forget the ego. How could that? I'm saving that for last because it's where I'll do the final keynote of all that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And so, but the last thing I'll say about the spleen is there is a sense of poor timing for spontaneity. I better hurry and do the thing. And it's always this hurry to do the thing that you think, because it's about thinking you need to hold on to something. Do you recognize this baked in feeling that I keep getting stuck thinking I have to hold. It might even be a receipt. It could be your favorite pet rock. It doesn't matter. And it very shows up clearly with, boyfriends and partners and bigger things, but it's
Holding on to that good idea of like,
yes. I
yeah.
had this and this guy Jones that's holding on to notions and ideas and concepts and whatever.
Mhm.
It's holding on to things that aren't good for you. That's the
Yeah.
not self of this, and it treats you like a slave when it captures you. And in a truly abusive relationship, it can make you stay a year or two longer than you're supposed to, up to and including. No, he only beats me a little bit, and I just deal.
Yeah.
Well, because that guy had a defined spleen and that lady didn't, and she's going to hold on to him.
Yeah.
And she's emotional, and he's not, so he's going to hold on to her.
Mhm.
He doesn't want that juice to go, and she doesn't want that safety feel good to go. Because when the spleen is, does your partner have a defined spleen? Do you remember?
I don't remember. No, I don't remember.
That's okay. If he does, or if you make one together, you'll notice a continual sense of feel good when he's around.
Actually, yeah, it is defined. I pulled his up.
Yep. Good.
That's funny.
So it's just a feel good. Do you want to let him? No, just a feel good. Don't go anywhere, honey. You say, that sounds like you feel good.
Mhm.
It's a sense of safety and feeling good. Now that's
Mhm.
correct. We're supposed to feel that, but you're supposed to be open to all the feelings of health and survival and safety and in the now, the stuff, what the spleen does. Open spleen people become great healers. You're the great corrective healer on this planet if you want to be on something. Chances are you will heal with your voice. Chances are. So holding on to things that aren't good for me. Last one is this open ego. Now, so these are all the things you've had a trip with your whole life, because as soon as our mother and father, I'm going to take 1 second here. How did our mom and dad and the authority in our life from the age of 0 to 5 truly take us away from our nature? They stopped having us respond. From the age of 0 to about 2.5 or 3, everything was a response mostly. Is the baby cold? Is the baby hungry? Does the baby need a hug? Do you have a boo-boo? All of these are generator questions. They're all yes, no questions. You hungry? You want a hug, sweetie? Are you okay? Okay. As soon as you could start speaking, that started to change. And they stopped asking the generator the question when that generator needed to steadfastly be asked questions right up through to age 14, at least through to age 7, but through to the second cellular cycle of age 14 at least. So that generator had baked into their system and their way, I'm not giving my energy until it's asked for. Someone's got it, and they got to ask right. And even if you ask, doesn't mean you get it. Because I've heard myself respond so many times, and my parents didn't get me in trouble when I said, I don't want to do the dishes, because they asked, do you want to do the dishes? Instead of, what do they really do? It's your turn, go do the dishes. That's
Yeah.
manifestor talk. And our language is tooled towards manifestor talk. And we don't even realize it. It's not go do the dishes. It's, do you feel like doing the dishes? Honey, do you want to do the dishes? And to absolutely know when she says, that's true. She doesn't. That's the truth. Doesn't mean they don't turn around and make you go do the dishes. Sooner or later, you have to go do the dishes. I get that. But it's about the absolute respect to recognize they should have asked you first so that they could let you hear what's true. And then you start making a deal with them. I know my mom and dad will make me do the thing, but they always let me say what was true first. Our parents didn't do that. They didn't know to do that.
No, it was
Dude,
very.
I'm not going to ask the kid.
way.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask the kid if it wants to clean its room. It's crazy. Of course he's going to say no, or she's going to say no. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to hear it 101, 2,000 times before that child grows up. You needed to hear that. And she needed to hear it too. It didn't matter. So our parents didn't know to do that. And once we were no longer being asked, we started acting like generators. I mean, like manifestors, and that was no good.
Yeah.
And it shows up profoundly in this open ego, totally open ego center. What is the ego trying to do? The ego in our current 9-centered form is responsible for doing the work and doing the shocking things and leaping into the void and being a warrior at times and controlling things and keeping a tribe together and keeping its commitments and doing the thing it said it was going to do. The ego is the one that says, I promise, and shows up. The
Mhm.
rest of us, especially generators, are the ones that say, I promise, and only show up half the time.
Mhm.
We are the great quitters, us generators, in this way. We are the profound ones that said one thing only to find out it wasn't true and we didn't feel like it. And then we have to backpedal and do all these things to prove how we need to get out of that thing. Or we make up a story about why we couldn't be there. And we turn into liars, is the thing. And when I say a liar, it's not so much the bold-faced liar that says, I promise I'll give you back $20 tomorrow and skips town.
Mhm.
You know, the guy lied. He knew he wasn't going to. It's just a total.
Yeah.
This is a maniacal little lie we sort of start telling ourselves. A little bit creeps out of our voice to the other because we have to make up an excuse about something. And all these excuses are all lies. The 4-year-old didn't do any of that, is the point. And we want to get out of the lying business because we all lie way too much. And they're not mean lies. But they're lies. They're just not true. And we have to get over this thing that lie is bad. We just have to get used to the fact that we've been doing it the whole time. Now we have to get good at not doing it. And it's not an easy task unless you don't care and you look at it just clinically and be like, yeah, let's do that too. But, while I'm fixing everything else, let's get rid of that because it's so much easier. The real ego says, I'll put my shoulder to the wheel. I'm going to do the work. And it shows up at 6 a.m. And it's the time to make the donuts guy who keeps showing up every day reliably because the ego can do that. The open ego person is not supposed to say, I will, I promise, mainly, except when it's empowered to do so. The open ego people are just supposed to look at what the ego willpower on the world does instead of getting jealous that it's not that power. The egos people, they roar and bluster because they love to compete and they compete with themselves first, but they'll compete with you too. Open ego people don't want to compete. You don't want to go into a music competition to prove you're the best singer. It'll feel like shit and you will never have that reward. And it won't even be rewarding if you get first, second, and third place. Excuse me, it'll be rewarding, but it's not the end all and be all. To us, we don't care. We're not here to win. We're here to watch ego people do all of that and realize that the ego needs to prove it. The open ego does not need to prove it. And we need people on this plane that are all about needing to prove it because they help move things along. They help keep that commitment and they help keep the community and the tribe together. The tribe is about commitment and trust and loyalty. And we need that. But when you have a totally open ego, you spend your time with what the not self question is for this. Am I still trying to prove I'm worthy? Am I still trying to prove I'm good enough? Am I still saying yes to things because if I don't, I'll appear unworthy. I'll appear not good enough. Am I trying to get good at something and then I'm wondering why I'm not as good as the other guy who seems to do it better? Am I always noticing that someone else might do it better? Do I always feel insecure that I won't do it good enough? Am I still feeling unworthy? Not good enough. That's a plague. This open ego possesses about 65% of the planet, have it open. And our whole job is to not worry about it. I got nothing to prove. That's what's true about an open ego. I got nothing to prove. And that's a hard place to be because we grew up in a world where our parents trained us to go prove it.
Yep. And that's exactly what I did growing up because I just wanted to prove my worth, and I miss being able to do the things that I enjoyed just for the fun of it. And now I'm at that phase where it's like, oh yeah, I do miss this. I do miss that. Like, why did I stop? Just because I felt like it was that competitive aspect. Oh, I'm not good at this, or I'm not as good as this person, or I'm never gonna hit the first place spots when it comes to singing. I'm never gonna sing in the opera house, And meanwhile, I thrived in Latin jazz. I love Latin jazz, but meanwhile, for music, especially vocal emphasis, I had to focus a little bit on that classical side. My old music teacher in high school was like, musical theater is a sin. And so I didn't get to play around with musical theater until I was in college. And
musical theater is gorgeous, is what it is.
I love musical theater.
Yeah.
For the longest time, it's always someone better. There's always why couldn't I just
always something better. You know who's making that field of always someone betterness happen? The ego people. You know who's designed to go prove it? The ego people. So I have nothing to prove, but you do. So go prove it. That's your thing. I'll sit back and watch your proof and see if it was any good. We become the measures of, was that worth proving? Was that even the thing worth doing? And in doing so, sometimes we prove it,
Yeah.
but it's not our shtick. So, and it doesn't mean we don't do the things we say we're going to do. If we're into it and the energy's there, we are empowered to do the thing we say we're going to do. But that's not an ego proving it. That's simply
Okay.
empowered in the now to use our highest and best.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I got nothing to prove.
hmm And that's
What was
something that I'm trying to wrap my head around, because that's something that really came to me as I was getting older. Like, why am I, I don't have to do it like
you
this
don't.
way. So
But every time you thought about not doing it, came this embarrassment and almost a humiliation. And certainly don't share that with anybody. And
right,
certainly don't post that on Facebook right now. You'll look like a clown or a
right.
loser.
Like
Yeah.
same with like being a teacher, sometimes I feel like, oh my
You're
goodness,
good
this
enough.
person is so good at being a teacher. Like, yeah, I
We
don't,
get into a comparison game that it's going to take you a little bit to get out of. This ego will be one of the longer standing things to decondition out of your body. It's
mhm,
in the cells of our body. It's in the water memory of our cells. It takes about 7 years to decondition fully, and it takes just a couple months to really get a whole bunch of it done so you can see it's working just
mhm.
by watching. Remember, the kid is always right. Seeing it kills it. And when I go ahead and keynote, let's put all these centers together and keynote them in one glorious little soup of madness, all
Uh-huh.
of which is who you are not. Okay. And then I'll ask you to speak to it when I'm done. Um, So here, first I'll say what we are. Here we have this 6'2" being who has tried almost everything in their life. It thinks things are a crisis, but totally knows there's an emotional process to stuff. Has gotten pretty good at all that. Sometimes she feels stuck, but she's always empowered to do this thing because she's always looking in. Sometimes she's a hermit, and she's totally great at the stuff she suddenly is emotionally clear on.
Uh-huh.
And that's what she loves.
Mhm.
That person keeps getting that gal who's perfect and has a sense of love of self and has a sense of direction and knows when to contribute and knows that there's a huge extreme inside of humanity and it's all got to be okay, and knows that there's things worth nurturing and knows there's things worth correcting and knows that sometimes I'm moody, but I know when the spirit is full.
Yeah.
That girl, it gets caught up and taken off her track because she's thinking about way too many things. Almost none of them matter. She can't parse out which ones do matter. She's caught in a mental anxiety field, and the uncertainty of it all has her not knowing what to do, when
Yeah.
to say, how to hold her hands. And suddenly she looks like a clown and she feels like she's not good enough and not worthy and can't do a thing. And only if she had held on to something that she should have held on to get better at. And she
Mhm.
can't hold on to it because it's no good for her and she has nothing to prove, trying to freaking collect the attention that she doesn't even want and she wasn't certain about in the first place. And she should have just said, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what the whole thing came upon you in a situation. Someone said something, and had you just said the truth, I don't know. I can't tell. Why? And you can even retort, did you think I was supposed to know? Put them
Mhm.
back in their place. You can take all these not self questions and turn them into a statement to the other in case they try to make you feel bad for it, or you even
Mhm.
sense yourself feeling that way. You got
Okay.
nothing to prove. There's nothing to hold on to. There is no timing except the timing of a response on when you're supposed to say stuff. And there's nothing that matters that you need to be certain of. You're witnessing the mattering field and the certainty field on this planet and determining what's right for you as a function of self exploration and emotional clarity
Mhm.
with grace, I might add. Um,
Wow.
how's that sound?
Yeah. Yes. Feels very me.
Kind of messed up that we can read this stuff, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, who knew? Um,
Any
any questions, Paula?
questions?
Yeah. Are you clear
Honestly,
on the experiment? That would be my question.
I think so.
Yeah, to just talk a little bit about this, like how the experiment might unfold in you.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm
Well, then might
still
unfold. What is the experiment? Just go over there's a few mechanics basics to this experiment if you can remember them.
I cannot. I'm kind of just like mind blown at this moment, and also a little tired. But
I got you.
yeah.
Well, experiment is you're willing to witness.
Mhm.
You're going to watch your process. You're willing to take in some of the bigger things we've said here. Like you have to go back over it so that you can watch those things.
Mhm.
You're willing to understand the maxims that the response, the kid is always right, and that
Mhm.
the act of seeing it means you've experienced it and it starts to now go away.
Yeah.
That's the experiment.
Yeah.
Seeing it kills it, and you got nothing to prove and nothing to
You're
hold on to. And you got nothing to say until the timing is right, because nothing matters. And you certainly are certain about that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That you got clear on. So you do have certainty, just not on the other's timing, because you got nothing to prove. So this is all good. I feel pretty good.
Yeah, I feel great, honestly. It gives me a lot of like clarity and a lot to reflect on, just to I know I think a lot about a lot of random things, but it really does help me. Okay, how can I like center myself and like figure out what really does resonate with me? And I don't know, I do love the fact that, okay, the throat and public speaking and being on stage, like all of this, like
It's perfect for you.
yeah. And so that makes me feel a lot better about myself and what I'm doing at the moment. Because I wasn't meant to just work at a cafe, but I'm good at the things I do. I'm good at talking to people. I'm good at like fast-paced environment. Like I pick something up, but is it really what I want to do? Not really. And I feel like I am called for doing something bigger. I just wasn't quite sure what. And so just having that like gave me a lot of clarity. So yeah.
Absolutely cool. You'll get so much more as you re-listen to this. So I really hope you go back over, and even if you fast forward to spots, it's great. Totally
Absolutely.
cool. Just re-listen 3, 4, 5 times if you can, because I'm telling you, as you get yourself back, you get your life back.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this. And if there's like
beautiful.
any questions, I don't really have any
No,
questions.
The right-minded almost never have questions anyways. I don't either.
I'm ready for bed.
All good. No, we're done. So
Thank
you coming
you
back on, Moana?
Whee! Amazing. That was so good.
Yeah.
I was like, my line one's like, are you sure you don't have questions? But
I know. I don't go at a specific way, Moana. I'm sorry.
no. I was talking to Paula, during our sound check, and I was like, well, you can ask about this, you can ask about that. But again, you gave her like a giant burger to like slowly work at.
Yes, that's the idea. Anyone who grasps that and like listens over and over again, like 3, 4, 5 times, they wake up. They can never go back. It's
like you can't like unknow it. If that
you can't
makes
unknow
sense.
it. Once it's amazing.
Right?
Repetition
It's like
is our friend.
once you know, and like, Danny kept saying, is like now you can watch it play out in your life, right? Like every time a thing happens, or like, there's that frustration, or there's me trying to people please.
Yeah, or me trying to come up with an answer to like,
right. Yes.
Yeah, I have a huge tendency of that because I feel awkward. But no, you're right. I need to just like, I don't know.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. So,
I don't know.
Right?
Was I supposed to know? Am I required to know? Did you?
Right. The only thing that I was like, I forgot to mention this, which I can quickly point out, is so the wave here, right? The what is it? 3955, right? So
Bike
that
wave
is the individual wave.
Yep.
So again, Paula, if you like look back to that episode where we did it, that's the one that's like crazy jagged. So it's like flat, just goes up, and then goes down, and then flat, just shoots down.
It's
so
spikes.
So it's like
wave.
It's a spike wave. Yeah. So it's like pretty neutral E until it's not. Right.
Uh-huh.
While the other ones kind of like ratchet up and stuff, that's not the one you have. And then the source wave is this one. Only sacral beings would ever have that, emotional sacrals. So that wave, if you look at it, if you compare all the waves, is like the one that looks the most gradual.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And it's also the one that decapitates the other when it's exhausted, its frustration, and it is done. When that wave is done, it decapitates the situation. It will
Ah.
murder the other side. And you've murdered several relationships, and you've murdered several situations that you just decapitated. That's it. Slice.
Yep.
The slicer. Yep.
Wow.
And
Well, there's a keynote there, friends. If you have,
yeah,
what was it? The 59.6?
59.6. It's just it's a slicer. I
It's
call it
the
a slicer.
slicer.
It's a slicer.
That's funny.
Yep. Slicer.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, this was fabulous. I was gonna say, Paula, if you don't have any questions, go to bed. We don't want to keep you up any
Love you, Paula. I love you,
escalated
Paula.
very
Thank you.
quickly.
Thank you so
Danny
much. I
loves
really do
Paula.
appreciate it. Aw.
Yes. So don't forget to text me and stuff because questions will pop up or whatever. You know, whatever comes up. Don't fall out of the loop. We got
Okay.
years
Thank
ahead
you.
of us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
But yes, enjoy being in your experiment. So we will bid you adieu. Boop.
Paula,
All
thank
right, Danny. So we get to tell everyone that we are going on break for 2 weeks
you.
because
No way, we got 2 weeks off?
yeah, we deserve it.
Wow. Cool. I forgot. And now I know again. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I get it all over. I get the gift twice. So it's
Right?
good.
Amazing
Yep.
sauce. So yes, friends, we are going to be away for 2 weeks, but look out. We're going to be making some exciting announcements. If
Mhm.
you've not checked out our coffee page, go do that. Go do that because we are opening up some really juicy things in there. We are opening up little mini HD insights. If you are like, I love those slides, I wish those were my notes, well, you can have access to those notes. You're
Right.
welcome. Go
Yep.
check out our coffee page. So it's that annoying thing that keeps coming up in the chat. Go click on it. Go click on it. Go check it out. It is on brand, all steampunk themed. It's super fun. And then at the last tier, which is really fun, we are offering group coaching. So just like kind of what Danny was doing for Paula, you're like, I have specific questions, whether it's work related, whether it's family, whether it's friends. Like we will sit there, look at your chart and like handhold for you. So we are
More is better.
here
we
for
want
you.
that. We want
Yeah.
that. We want
And
people
we're trying to make HD accessible, right? So it is at a very affordable price. So go check that out. But without further ado, we're going on break. We are going on break.
Great.
We'll see you in 2 weeks. When we come back, we are going to start a very special series called the Deconditioning Series. We have been yapping away at you about all these different centers, and we've been mentioning that you need to start getting out of that programming that you've been receiving your whole life. And there's wonderful tools out there besides just the awareness piece that can really help feel supported and feel more what's the word I'm looking for? It can even like kind of speed up the process a bit. And we will showcase different experts each week. So watch out for that. It's going to be magical. It's going to be transformative, and we cannot catalyze. Yes, it will catalyze you. It will light you up. It's going to be
That's
great.
what we're looking for. It's
yeah,
nice.
it's going to be absolutely fabulous. I will give you a little spoiler alert. We have a sound bath healer as our first person coming.
No
And
way.
she is, when I had her work on me, my cells were vibrating. Like it was like my whole being was like, I can't even, words do not do this justice. So we are so excited. She's a 2/4, by the way, so natural. She can't even explain how she's as magical as she is. So very excited to have her join when we come back from the break and explain as much as a two can explain how she does what she does. So it's gonna be great. But
They'll
with that,
explain it. You just put them in the right environment. They'll explain it.
right? Yeah. So Daniel will get to pick her brain a bit. It'll be great. But without further ado, friends, see you in 2 weeks. Go check out our coffee page, and we can't wait to see you when we're back from our break. And check out our replays if you miss us. If you miss us, we have like a whole library of that goodness. If you're like, oh, I don't know about that episode, so go check it out. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. Adieu.
Thanks, everyone.
Adieu.
Much love.